Welcome to the Dragon's Nest entrance exam. The moment an Eldragon child turns 7 years old, they are thrown straight into an absolute nightmare. Enter the Regeneration Stone. This cursed artifact does not just heal instantly, it violently reflects any physical damage back at the attacker, 100 times harder. One overly confident rookie steps up to the plate. Big mistake. He instantly shatters both of his arms, just trying to leave a tiny scratch on its glowing surface. Even a tough guy like Rangus is shaking in his boots. This brutal trial is specifically designed to crush a warrior's spirit before the academy even starts. But while the rest of the kids are having a total meltdown, Zeke is just standing there, looking completely bored out of his mind. After surviving literal dragon blood as an infant and grinding in the shadows for years, he really expected a hardcore challenge, not some oversized pebble. So when his name is finally called, he sends shockwaves through the entire courtyard. How? By completely refusing to draw a weapon. The crowd erupts into mocking laughter. They are fully expecting his bare hands to explode into a million pieces. But instead of failing, Zeke's aura erupts. He unleashes a single, devastating punch, obliterating the legendary stone so completely, the examiner's jaw practically hits the floor. In one breathtaking second, this so-called illegitimate weakling proves to everyone that he is an absolute menace. But to understand this insane power, we have to rewind to his previous life. Our main character was obsessed with reaching the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. Yet, a harsh reality held him back, a divine ceiling he could never break through. Driven by pure desperation, he gambled everything on an ancient myth, a fairy tale whispered through generations of warriors. Legends spoke of a divine golden fruit, hidden deep inside a sacred sanctuary, and guarded by a terrifying winged beast. The ultimate prize? Absolute immortality. After an epic, earth-shattering war against the dragon, our main character finally claimed his glowing, golden treasure. Mind totally blown that the myth was real, he parked himself right on top of the beast's massive corpse, looking like a literal god of war. Holding the radiant treasure in his blood-stained hands, he was absolutely certain this single bite would unlock the ultimate martial realm. Back then, he was known as Gilfus Eldragon, universally feared and respected as the strongest mortal breathing on Earth. Flash forward several decades, the legendary Gilfus is now a withered old man, lying helplessly on his deathbed. His family gathers around, with his eldest son, Gilliam, sitting faithfully by his side. Seeing the crushing sorrow in his son's eyes, the old master offers a weak, comforting smile. He gently tells Gilliam to stay strong, accepting that his epic journey is finally over. Tears stream down Gilliam's face. The trauma of losing his mother is repeating itself, and now he is watching his hero fade away into the shadows. As the darkness slowly creeps in, Gilfus scoffs at the memory of that golden fruit. He realizes the whole immortality legend was nothing but a massive scam. Still, he finds peace in his final moments. Looking at the beautiful family he built, he declares that his life was full, and he is leaving this world with zero regrets. But let us be real, that was a massive lie. Deep inside his warrior soul, a burning regret was eating him alive. He was completely devastated that time ran out before he conquered the martial peak. With his final breath, the legendary master crosses over. But then, boom, his eyes violently snap wide open. Panic instantly sets in. The world looks massive and distorted. More terrifyingly, his heavy, dying body suddenly feels light as a feather. He frantically looks down, only to see tiny, chubby baby hands. The reality hits him like a freight train. He has been reborn as an infant. Trapped inside a wooden crib, his mind is doing absolute backflips. But relying on his decades of combat discipline, he forces his racing heart to calm down. As a former 10-star Supreme Master, his sharp instincts kick in immediately. He quickly deduces that this bizarre situation is the work of something beyond human comprehension. Who could possess the godlike power to manipulate souls? Then, the memory flashes like lightning. The golden fruit from the beast's lair. It was not meant for eternal life at all. The legendary treasure did not stop death. It shattered the cycle of rebirth. It was a reincarnation fruit all along. A vicious, excited grin spreads across his tiny face. This is way better than immortality. Armed with a fresh start and his past knowledge, he knows he will absolutely conquer the universe this time. Scanning his surroundings, he spots rows of other cribs. Analyzing the grand architecture of the nursery, he hits the jackpot. He has been reincarnated right back into his own bloodline, the terrifyingly powerful Eldragon family. But a chilling thought creeps into his mind. Why are there so many infants gathered in one isolated room? The dark atmosphere feels deeply wrong. Suddenly, the heavy doors creep open. Maids march in, gripping weird, glowing feeding bottles. But instead of a human, they pull a literal baby goblin out of a crib. Gilfus is absolutely stunned. Why is there a filthy monster in an aristocratic nursery? A deep sense of dread washes over him as he watches their next move. They force a glowing red liquid down the creature's throat. Seconds later, Boom! The goblin violently explodes, splattering dark blood right across our main character's tiny face. Pure, unadulterated terror paralyzes his tiny body. His mind races at light speed, desperately trying to identify the lethal poison inside those glass bottles. The chilling reality sets in. This nursery is not a safe haven. It is a brutal, cold-blooded slaughterhouse. His 10-star senses are working on overdrive, analyzing the horrific scene to understand what demonic substance could make a living creature detonate from the inside out. Whatever is sloshing around in there, it is definitely not baby formula. It is practically vibrating with an overwhelmingly dense, terrifying, magical aura. He is completely horrified that these psychopaths are experimenting on actual newborns. Before he can even react, a maid forcibly shoves the glowing bottle right into his mouth. The searing liquid hits his tongue, and his past life's memories instantly trigger. The horrific, burning taste is unmistakable. It is pure, ancient dragon blood. He cannot wrap his head around this absolute madness. Forcing fragile infants to consume raw dragon energy is a straight-up death sentence. The dark truth clicks together. They are using the goblins as test subjects for dilution. Survival instincts kick into high gear. He tries to violently spit the fiery liquid out, but a terrifying realization hits him. A few deadly drops have already slipped down his throat. Bracing for the worst, he calculates that his overpowered soul can probably withstand a tiny dose. Looking around the blood-soaked room, he watches the other surviving infants violently rejecting the cursed elixir. He figures his best bet is to swallow the burning energy whole, before his tiny vessel literally bursts into a million pieces. A sudden realization hits him like a freight train. Spitting out this precious elixir would be a massive, unforgivable mistake. If he can just devour every last drop of this pure mana, he could shatter his past limits and ascend to the absolute pinnacle of martial mastery. He might be totally clueless about his new reality, but he is dead set on squeezing every ounce of advantage from this crazy scenario. His fierce gaze screams pure defiance as he chugs the entire vial, silently daring the universe to try and hold him back. The attending maid completely freezes in pure shock. This mere infant is actually gulping down the notoriously lethal dragon blood like it is sweet milk. A massive wave of relief washes over her, thrilled that their brutal gamble is actually paying off. Tucked back into his tiny crib after draining the vial dry, he glances around. Unbelievably, the other infants somehow survived the hellish ordeal too, but the sheer exhaustion of digesting that ancient power kicks in, and his eyelids flutter shut as a heavy slumber claims him. Flash forward 7 years later, Gylfes is out here defying gravity, balancing a massive boulder on his legs while casually repping out one-armed push-ups. Hitting rep number 1000, he flexes his core and violently kicks the giant rock away like it weighs absolutely nothing. He admires his ridiculously shredded physique with a satisfied smirk. By the way, in this new life, he now goes by the name Zeke Eldragon. Zeke knows exactly where this monstrous physical prowess came from. It is all thanks to that insanely potent dragon blood he chugged as a baby. That crimson elixir packed an ocean of vitality. Even the kids who merely tasted a single drop evolved into physical powerhouses compared to normal humans. But Zeke had a cheat code. Thanks to the divine dragon essence anchoring his soul from his previous life, he greedily absorbed every ounce of that ancient draconic power. The resulting physical evolution was so explosive, it honestly left even a seasoned veteran like him completely speechless. Yet, a heavy sigh escapes his lips. He scans his internal core and realizes he is still stuck as a 1-star warrior, miles away from the 4-star rank he expected. In this world, a star represents a martial artist's core energy, condensed and pressurized to its absolute breaking point. You have to treat your own flesh and blood like an infinite galaxy, allowing these compressed stars to orbit and surge through your veins. Naturally, the bottleneck gets brutally harder to break with every new star, since each breakthrough multiplies your destructive output exponentially. Back in his golden days, Zeke absolutely shattered reality by forging 10 stars, becoming the one and only undisputed god of martial arts to ever walk the earth. Now, 7 years have vanished since he reincarnated into the prestigious Eldragon dragon clan, supposedly as the patriarch's own flesh and blood. The tragic reality? He is a bastard child. His mother passed away long ago, and his so-called father has not bothered to show his face even once. Zeke scoffs at the absolute audacity, cursing the fact that he is bound by blood to such a miserable, deadbeat piece of trash. To make matters wilder, he woke up exactly 1,000 years in the future, in a ruthless era where the strong devour the weak without a second thought. This clan enforces a brutal tradition called the Dragon Trial. Only the infants who survive the agonizing blood-drinking ritual earn the right to train as elite draconic warriors. Yet, Zeke has been completely abandoned in the shadows, left without a single mentor. Hoping for a clue, he turns to his stoic caretaker for answers. Her response is as cold as ice. She rigidly bows, claiming she is strictly forbidden from spilling family secrets. Frustration boiling over, Zeke snaps. He demands to know why a trial survivor like him is rotting away with babysitters instead of crossing blades with elite combat instructors. Staring back with the hollow eyes of a wind-up doll, she merely asks if the young master requires anything else. Zeke just waves her off in pure disgust. Honestly, the lack of tutors is not a deal-breaker. His primary goal right now is forging his infant body into an indestructible weapon, rather than learning flashy sword forms. Pivoting his strategy, he casually fishes for intel regarding the other legitimate heirs dominating the main estate. Unsurprisingly, he hits another brick wall. The servant drops the exact same robotic line, insisting her lips are sealed by order of the higher-ups. He tries every conversational trap in the book to pry the truth out of her, but her ironclad silence remains completely unbroken. Irritation flares in his eyes. He sarcastically asks if her vocabulary is broken, practically demanding to know if he was kept alive just to be treated like absolute garbage. She flatly shuts that theory down, insisting her sole directive from the shadows is to keep him comfortable and alive. Zeke narrows his eyes, sensing the hidden aura radiating from her. This mere servant is secretly a 3-star warrior, making her the perfect hidden sparring partner. Realizing this conversation is a total dead end, our young prodigy decides to take matters into his own hands and heads straight for the untamed wilds. He shakes his head in utter disbelief. They have shared the same roof for 3 years, yet the emotional distance between them feels like an endless canyon. Tossing one last remark over his shoulder, he waits for a reaction, but he is met with nothing but dead silence as she completely tunes him out. Deep within the shadowy woods, Zeke starts casually snacking on highly toxic flora, choking down the vile, throat-burning taste without flinching. To a supreme martial god, poison is just another stepping stone to greatness. But amidst his brutal conditioning, his killer instincts suddenly flare up. Someone is hunting him. Who would be cowardly enough to stalk a kid from the shadows? Dismissing the unseen stalker for now, his razor-sharp focus shifts to the immediate threat blocking his path. A massive, bloodthirsty boar bursts from the underbrush, snorting with rage. But as Zeke squares up, he senses a bizarre, creeping black mist leaking from his stalker, a dark energy completely alien to his past life. Brushing the sinister mystery aside, Zeke steps directly into the monster's path. It is time to test this new draconic body, and things are about to get incredibly violent. The monstrous beast barrels straight for him, but Zeke just flashes a wicked grin, perfectly predicting its path and sidestepping with flawless precision. Leaving its guard completely wide open, Zeke drives a devastating punch right into the monster's gut. The sheer kinetic force of the blow obliterates the creature's internal organs, instantly one-tapping it. Zeke stares at his fist in pure disbelief, amazed that a casual strike from a mere 1-star rank packed enough firepower to instantly melt the beast. It finally clicks in his head. When it comes to stars, the absolute purity of the aura matters way more than the number. Slinging the massive carcass over his shoulder, Zeke casually strolls back to his cabin. He mutters about how insanely boring this isolated life has become, desperately craving a real adventure. But reality hits him hard with the vast ocean completely barricading him. His map is literally locked. Meanwhile, hidden in the shadows, the covert tail-tracking Zeke is absolutely mind-blown. He just witnessed a kid obliterate a wild beast with a single, unpolished strike, despite having 0 official combat training under his belt. And on top of that insane raw talent, the spy is terrified that Zeke casually sensed his hidden presence. He instantly realizes this kid is completely built different. With a mother who passed away tragically early, and a deadbeat father who completely abandoned him, the spy knows for a fact that Zeke never received a single drop of formal tutoring. Yet, as a direct descendant of the family head, Zeke is strictly forbidden from escaping, permanently trapped under their watchful radar. The shadow operative smirks, realizing this boring surveillance gig just turned into an absolute blockbuster. Zeke finally rolls up to his turf, but instantly stops in his tracks. Uninvited guests are crashing at his spot. His heightened senses immediately lock onto their heavy spiritual pressure, and he naturally questions their motives. Creeping up to the wooden door to spy on them, he sighs in relief when his radar detects 0 bloodlust. Deciding to face the music, he kicks the door wide open, locking eyes with a squad of imposing men, and directly demands to know why they are invading his space. His eyes suddenly dart to the legendary L-Dragon crest stitched into their uniforms. His curiosity spikes to the absolute max, wondering what the main family wants with an outcast. Without skipping a beat, the enforcers drop a massive bombshell. They are here to escort him to a mandatory evaluation. Zeke practically flips his lid at the sudden news. Nobody even bothered to give him a heads up about some random pop quiz. Before he can even process the chaos, he is dragged straight to the main estate. He gazes at the towering architecture, internally screaming that it has been a whole millennium since his past life walked these exact same halls. The grim-faced handlers aggressively shove Zeke into a crisp school uniform. As the puzzle pieces fall into place, he realizes this massive estate trip isn't some luxury vacation. He is being forced into the infamous Dragon's Nest Academy. This elite institution was forged by the legendary Dragon Syndicate, and every single bloodline heir would literally kill to secure a spot there. By tradition, the heirs start their intense academic grind at exactly 7 years old, and today happens to be the brutal entrance trial. But the catch? Zeke was completely left to rot without a shred of basic tutoring. Yet, dodging this trial is literally impossible, which explains why these goons dragged him all the way out of his peaceful forest sanctuary. The sheer absurdity of the situation makes Zeke's blood boil, and he grips his head in sheer agonizing frustration. As a sea of elite applicants pushes past him, a timid boy rocking blue hair, known as Langus, slowly approaches. Hailing from the humble old-scale village, Langus nervously asks if Zeke is feeling okay, or if he needs to visit the infirmary. Zeke whips around with a fierce glare, aggressively snapping at the kid to mind his own business. But Langus totally shrinks back, his timid personality shining through, as he stammers that he just wanted to help a fellow student in distress. Zeke is momentarily stunned by the kid's total lack of ego. His combat instincts flare up as his eyes scan the boy, detecting a surprisingly dense aura pulsing beneath that weak exterior. Instantly checking his attitude, Zeke stands up and drops a sincere apology for acting like a total jerk. He formally introduces himself, venting to Langus that he is completely clueless about whatever twisted games the family heads are plotting for this exam. Langus tilts his head in confusion, pointing out that the Academy's trial curriculum literally hasn't changed in years. But Zeke immediately cuts him off, straight up admitting he has zero intel on what they are even supposed to be doing. Langus's jaw practically hits the floor as he realizes the dude standing right in front of him is entering a war zone completely blind. Panic washes over Langus's face, terrified that Zeke is going to get absolutely crushed in the arena. Taking pity on him, Langus volunteers to be his personal guide, but right before he can drop some crucial knowledge, a squad of arrogant bullies rolls up from behind, loudly trash-talking Langus as a pathetic runt. Even, Zeke raises an eyebrow, shocked by the sheer disrespect thrown at the blue-haired kid. The gang leader, a smug brat named Retin, actually hails from the exact same old-scale village. Retin mercilessly targets Langus, ruthlessly questioning why a bottom-tier scrub like him even bothered showing up to the elite trials, instead of playing in the dirt back home. Langus totally misses the hostile sarcasm, politely stating that he is here to pass the entrance exam. This innocent response absolutely triggers Retin, who starts screaming at the top of his lungs. He aggressively labels Langus as complete garbage, swearing that a pathetic loser will never step foot inside the glorious academy. Retin then shifts his toxic energy toward Zeke, mockingly reminding everyone that Zeke's dad is nothing but a mock dragon. Zeke's eyes narrow as he notices Langus silently boiling over, catching sight of the kid's knuckles turning stark white from clenching his fists. It turns out, the mighty Dragon clan runs on a ruthless hierarchy, completely dominated by an absolute monarch at the top. In this brutal food chain, the fresh rookies are branded as lesser dragons, while the standard frontline grunts are dubbed young dragons. Above them sits the captain class, basically the fully matured adult dragons. And reigning at the absolute top, the executive class, famously known as the legendary elder dragons. But at the very bottom of this food chain lies a tier reserved exclusively for absolute garbage. Society coldly calls them the mock dragons. These are the academy dropouts and the complete failures who couldn't even set foot inside the sacred dragon nest. Everyone treats them like pathetic fakes. But Langus? His eyes burn with pure determination to prove the whole world wrong. That's when Zeke casually crashes the party. He stares dead at Retin and drops a reality check. How can he label Langus as absolute trash when the entrance exams haven't even started yet? Retin completely loses his mind at this disrespect. He glares at our boy, demanding to know who this random nobody is, and if he wants to catch some hands. Zeke doesn't even flinch. He keeps his cool, simply pressing the bully on why he's so obsessed with Langus failing the academy entrance. Scoffing like a typical arrogant villain, Retin spits out that guys like Langus are just born losers. Our main character literally chuckles at the audacity. Without missing a beat, Zeke bluntly states that Langus could totally wipe the floor with Retin and his whole squad of lackeys. Talk about emotional damage. Retin's blood boils over, screaming at Zeke for daring to put a fake above a pureblood like him. Before fists can actually start flying, an official examiner steps out of the shadows. The overwhelming tension breaks as he announces the exams are officially kicking off. His commanding voice echoes across the courtyard, ordering every single applicant to register and snatch a numbered ID tag. Retin shoots Zeke one last venomous glare. He grinds his teeth, promising to make our boy regret ever crossing his path. Zeke just blinks in mild confusion. In his mind, he casually wonders why kids these days have absolutely zero chill. Langus sweat drops at that boomer comment, reminding Zeke they are literally the exact same age. Plus, getting called weak to your face is obviously going to trigger anyone. Changing the subject, Zeke asks if they are forced to take this test. Shaking his head, Langus explains that tapping out is totally an option. Anyone afraid of getting destroyed can just walk away. This completely blows Zeke's mind, which only makes Langus facepalm at how clueless his new friend really is. Out of genuine concern, Langus begs Zeke to drop out right now. The exam is brutal, and he doesn't want to see a rookie get crushed, but Zeke just flashes a fearless smirk. Quitting? Not in his vocabulary. Langus stares in absolute awe at this unmatched confidence. How is this guy so hyped when he doesn't even know the rules? Brushing off the panic, Zeke simply points toward the arena and says it's time to go make history. Moments later, the massive crowd of rookies floods the testing grounds. Standing like a stone statue, the proctor finally drops the twisted rules. The challenge sounds like an absolute joke. To pass, all they have to do is leave a single, tiny scratch on the massive boulder sitting in the center. But there is a massive catch. Personal gear is strictly banned. You can only wield the standard academy blades provided on the racks, or, if you want to flex on everyone, you can literally use your bare hands. As long as that stone gets marked, you survive. 3 chances per person. That is it. Zeke practically yawns, thinking this entire trial is an absolute walk in the park. Meanwhile, Langus looks like he just saw a ghost. Zeke raises an eyebrow, wondering why his buddy is visibly shaking over a stupid rock. I mean, it's just scratching a stone, right? After surviving that insane trial of drinking literal dragon blood, Zeke expected a battle to the death. Compared to that near-death experience, this little rock-hitting contest feels like a massive letdown. The proctor barks the command, and the first victim steps up. Gripping a heavy broadsword, the guy swings with pure, unadulterated fury. Boom! A shockwave violently ripples through the courtyard. The heavy steel shatters into a million pieces, leaving everyone's ears ringing from the deafening impact. The dust settles. Not a single microscopic scratch on the boulder. The applicant instantly drops to his knees, screaming in absolute agony. Cold as ice, the proctor asks if he wants to use his last 2 strikes. But the kid is literally sobbing, his arms trembling from the devastating recoil. Disqualified, medics immediately drag his broken body away. Watching this horrifying scene, Zeke finally notices Langus sweating bullets beside him. Okay, clearly there's a trick to this simple test. Zeke taps his shoulder, asking for the lore drop. Swallowing hard, Langus reveals its true name, the Regeneration Stone. This cursed boulder instantly heals any microscopic surface damage. But the real nightmare? It literally acts like a damage mirror. If you hit it with pure physical brute force, it violently reflects the impact 100 times over. Zeke's eyes widen. Okay, that is actually a ridiculously overpowered rock. But there is a loophole. Langus whispers that the only way to mark it is by perfectly circulating your internal ether source power. The puzzle pieces instantly click in Zeke's mind. This isn't a test of muscle or fancy swordplay. It's a hardcore exam on absolute mana control. Using his sharp battle senses, our main character scans the trembling crowd of rookies. His eyes lock onto a handful of hidden gems who definitely have the aura to pass. Begrudgingly, he notes that arrogant Retin and his squad actually have enough raw talent to survive this. Meanwhile, the arena turns into a total slaughterhouse. Crack after crack, scream after scream, the sounds of failure echo relentlessly. Dozens of kids are getting their arms entirely shattered by the brutal reflection. Suddenly, a booming voice calls out, "Applicant number 315. It is time for Zeke to shine." Pure panic washes over Langus. He frantically grabs Zeke, begging him to walk away before he gets crippled. But our boy just flashes a reassuring smile, telling him to watch and learn. The moment Zeke's boots hit the testing floor, the atmosphere drastically shifts. The veteran proctor instantly freezes, choking on the suffocating, monstrous aura radiating from this supposed rookie. Sweating, the examiner nervously asks which weapon he wants to wield. Zeke simply rolls up his sleeves, declaring to the shocked crowd that his bare hands are more than enough. The examiner questions him one last time, asking if he is seriously going in barehanded. But Zeke just smirks, radiating pure confidence as he declares his fists are more than enough to get the job done. The surrounding students immediately burst into toxic laughter. They ruthlessly mock him, swearing there is zero chance his pathetic punches will even leave a microscopic scratch on the massive boulder. Even his boy Langus is absolutely sweating bullets. He is paralyzed by the terrifying thought that Zeke is about to blast his own arms straight off his torso. Guilt fiercely eats away at Langus. He desperately curses himself for not dragging Zeke away from this absolute suicide mission of an exam. But Zeke's resolve is made of absolute steel. Seeing the unwavering fire in his eyes, The examiner finally gives him the green light to step up. Zeke silently sizes up the massive boulder. His eyes narrow as he realizes the stone is forged from some unknown, otherworldly mineral he has never encountered. He mentally calculates that this material must have materialized after his 1,000-year time skip. A heavy realization hits him. There is an absolute mountain of modern knowledge he still needs to catch up on, but those overwhelming thoughts are a problem for tomorrow. Right now, Zeke grounds his stance, ignites his internal energy, and locks onto his target. As raw, explosive power surges through his veins, he knows exactly what needs to be done. This concentrated energy is more than enough to absolutely obliterate the obstacle in front of him. He channels his signature, legendary move, the Dragon Slayer combat technique. Instantly, a blinding, golden-yellow aura erupts around his entire arm like a blazing inferno. Bam! He drives his glowing fist straight into the boulder. The devastating impact triggers a deafening shockwave, completely shattering the top half of the stone and swallowing the arena in a massive dust cloud. The entire crowd is paralyzed in absolute shock. While the students instinctively shield their eyes from the blast, the head examiner stares unblinking, taking in the impossible sight. Playing it off like a total boss, Zeke exhales a quiet breath. But deep down, he feels the agonizing backlash, realizing this god-tier art is way too heavy for his current physical limits. Glancing down, the physical toll is painfully obvious. His academy uniform is completely shredded, and fresh blood violently drips down his trembling arm. Instead of flexing his insane victory, Zeke mentally trashes his own performance, convinced his daily training is still absolute garbage. Meanwhile, the speechless crowd is mentally short-circuiting, trying to process his monstrous power. Off in the corner, the massive hater Retin is practically foaming at the mouth. He is fuming with toxic jealousy over Zeke's dominant, jaw-dropping flex. Langus is literally malfunctioning, scraping his jaw off the floor. Out of every single candidate in this arena, Zeke was the absolute last guy he expected to clear this insane hurdle. Even the stoic examiner is reeling internally, viewing this as a literal glitch in reality. Breaking a legendary regeneration stone should be mathematically impossible for anyone below a 4-star rank. Since Zeke is famously known as the family's illegitimate outcast, the examiner's mind races. Did this underdog somehow secretly awaken the terrifying, pure bloodline of the main house? Wait a minute. The examiner's eyes widen as he vividly recognizes that exact combat stance from somewhere deep in his memories. Snapping him out of his trance, Zeke casually strolls up and asks for his final score. Still recovering from the unbelievable shock, the examiner stamps his pass. He then tosses Zeke a mysterious glass vial, glowing with a neon green liquid. When Zeke politely asks the junior examiner what kind of juice this is, the guy just hits him with a venomous death glare and barks at him to get out of the way. Shrugging off the intense hater energy, Zeke figures it's just standard loot for clearing the stage. He calmly pivots and walks back to his hyped-up new best friend. Langus is completely losing his mind, hyping Zeke's performance to the moon. When Zeke questions him about the glowing vial, Langus casually drops that it's just a basic healing potion. Zeke tilts his head, utterly bewildered by the term. Langus clarifies that it's literally just a standard issue, normal-grade medical consumable. Zeke squints at the swirling green liquid. Relying on his past life alchemical instincts, he quickly confirms the brew isn't laced with any deadly toxins. His mind starts racing with wild, impossible theories. Could this so-called basic potion actually be a legendary elixir? In his era, elixirs were mythic drops crafted only from impossibly rare, exotic materials. We are talking top-tier herbs harvested exclusively from ultra-dangerous hidden dimensions. And to top it off, they required the priceless monocores of divine and phantom-class beasts. Chugging a true elixir doesn't just instantly delete all physical damage. It simultaneously supercharges a warrior's ether reserves to absolute maximum capacity. But the crafting process was an absolute nightmare. Securing those god-tier ingredients was basically a suicide mission for even the strongest alchemists in history. That is exactly why they were practically ghost myths on the market. Deciding to risk it, Zeke downs the mysterious brew, and in a flash of light, his shredded arm flawlessly reconstructs itself. Zeke's mind is absolutely blown to pieces. He is thoroughly convinced he just chugged a priceless, god-tier elixir. But when he mentions it, Langus looks completely lost. Having zero clue what an elixir even is, Langus carelessly brushes it off. He explains that Eldritch brand potions simply hit way harder than the cheap garbage sold in regular street shops. While Langus treats this like everyday normal physics, Zeke is having a massive existential crisis. He cannot fathom how his brutal injuries regenerated at literal light speed. But wait, Zeke suddenly notices a missing detail. His ether levels aren't spiking like they normally would after downing a true elixir. Snapping him back to reality, Langus hypes up his insane power level once again, but Zeke humbly deflects the massive praise. Staring at the empty vial, He realizes this insane juice is simply the ultimate peak of human knowledge, developed over a millennium. Langus continues glazing his unbelievable strength, but Zeke's eyes lock onto the horizon, coldly stating that his only goal is to become the absolute strongest in existence, making this minor win light work. Soon enough, the arrogant Retin and his toxic squad step into the arena for their test. Unsurprisingly, they easily smash through their trials and secure their passing grades. Zeke doesn't even bat an eye at this result. He already calculated that those annoying elites had the baseline stats to clear the exam. Suddenly, the loudspeaker echoes through the massive stadium, calling up applicant 414. It's finally Langus's turn to face the music. As he nervously descends the stadium steps, Zeke spots his friend, practically vibrating with pure anxiety. He immediately steps up, telling his bro to lock in and pull himself together. He hits Langus with a solid pep talk, promising him he's absolutely going to crush it. But Langus just turns around with a tortured smile, begging Zeke to stop setting the success bar astronomically high. Stepping onto the testing ground, Langus suddenly unsheathes a massive broadsword. Zeke just stands there blinking, completely baffled by his friend's random weapon choice. Sucking in a massive breath, Langus channels everything he has and completely unloads a furious sword strike on the boulder. But it's a total flop, failing to leave even a microscopic scratch on the stone. To make it infinitely worse, the brutal recoil literally sends him face-planting into the dirt. Shaking his head, the examiner coldly announces that the struggling kid has exactly 2 lifelines left to prove his worth. Langus forces himself back up for one last desperate swing. But reality is cruel. He collapses to his knees, hot tears blurring his vision. The crushing weight of failure suffocates his spirit. Was he really destined to be a loser just like they said? Right on cue, Retin's gang erupts into merciless laughter. They ruthlessly mock his bloodline, spitting out that a half-dragon's kid will always be trash. They bark at him to just give up already. Turning their toxic energy toward Zeke, they sneer about his earlier claim that this weakling was somehow stronger than them. The examiner's cold voice cuts through the noise. One final attempt. Asked if he wants to proceed, Langus chokes on his words, his mind plunging into an abyss of absolute despair. But right then, a familiar voice pierces through the shadows. Zeke casually calls out, demanding to know what he is doing, freezing up like that. Snapping his head around in pure confusion, Langus locks eyes with Zeke. The absolute madman drops a bombshell. Ditch the sword and grab a spear. Langus stares blankly, processing the insane advice. But Zeke's eyes are dead serious. He roasts Langus on the spot for desperately clinging to a weapon that completely rejects his natural talent. Zeke lays out the brutal truth. He could swing that blade 1,000,000 times, and he still wouldn't leave a single scratch on that testing stone. Retin's crew absolutely loses their minds laughing. They loudly point out that Langus has been a swordsman since childhood. The guy hasn't held a spear once in his entire pathetic life. In their arrogant eyes, swapping weapons is just a massive joke. A loser with a different toy is still just a loser. Ignoring the haters, Zeke directly challenges the examiner. Is swapping gear mid-exam against the rules? The proctor shakes his head, giving the green light for the weapon change. A massive, confident smirk spreads across Zeke's face. He shoots Langus a look that screams trust, telling him the stage is perfectly set for a spear. Stepping up like a legendary mentor, Zeke hits him with the ultimate reality check. Are you really walking away as a failure today? A fire ignites in Langus's eyes as he fiercely denies it. Pushing off the dirt, Langus finally stands tall. He looks Zeke dead in the eyes, declaring he is going all in on the spear strategy. Flashes of his past rush into his mind. His father was permanently banned from the Dragon's Nest, forced to swallow endless insults and toxic mockery from the elites. Yet through the hellish treatment, the man never once broke. He poured his entire soul into raising Langus right. Carrying his father's unwavering pride, Langus vows to prove his bloodline isn't fake. Zeke's harsh reality check echoes in his head. The path of the sword only leads to a dead end. It is time to break Destiny's chains. Their bond might be brand new, but something about Zeke's commanding aura demands absolute faith. Langus is betting everything on this wild gamble. Panic slightly sets in as he grips the unfamiliar shaft. How does this thing even work? Zeke keeps it brutally simple. Just thrust straight, shut off your brain, and let your instincts take the wheel. Logic screams that a total rookie cannot possibly shatter a regeneration stone on attempt number 1. But miracles don't happen to those who refuse to strike. They literally just crossed paths, yet Langus anchors his resolve to Zeke's unwavering confidence. If this monstrously strong guy believes in him, then he needs to believe in himself. Langus shifts into a clumsy but determined stance. Suddenly, his eyes snap wide open. The ether source energy surging through his veins, it feels entirely different. The mana flows like a raging river, instead of a blocked stream. Langus explodes forward like a human missile, driving the spear into the stone with a deafening shockwave. The dust hasn't even settled before Retten's squad starts howling with laughter. They instantly mock his dramatic display, calling it a flashy but completely useless strike. But as the smoke clears, their smug smiles instantly freeze. The impossible just happened right before their eyes. Their jaws drop straight to the floor in pure shock. Even the stone-faced examiner breaks his composure, utterly mind-blown that the spearhead is buried deep inside the impenetrable rock. Zeke radiates proud big brother energy, slow clapping for the epic comeback. Langus is completely paralyzed with joy as the examiner officially stamps a passing grade into his record book. Thinking he is trapped in a dream, Langus stammers out a request for confirmation. But before he gets an answer, Zeke wildly tackles him from behind in a massive bear hug. He screams that the victory is entirely real. Overwhelming euphoria crashes over Langus. With fresh tears streaming down his face, he tightly returns the emotional embrace. Retten and his lackeys are heavily huffing pure copium. They aggressively reject reality, desperately trying to convince themselves it was just a freak accident of luck. The examiner's booming voice shatters the tension. He officially declares the brutal physical exam over. The surviving applicants are ordered to prepare for the grand entrance ceremony. Zeke blinks in utter disbelief. Wait, that is it? He is genuinely baffled that slightly denting a magic rock is the Academy's only barrier to entry. Langus quickly steps in to drop some insider knowledge. He warns Zeke not to drop his guard, heavily hinting that a hidden, far deadlier exam awaits them inside the gates. Scratching his head, Zeke asks what they are supposed to do right now, since they already secured their tickets to the big leagues. Langus nervously explains the upcoming protocol. The legendary heads of the Eld Dragon family are about to descend, delivering a prestigious speech to the absolute elite who survived. Almost on cue, a terrifying pressure suffocates the courtyard. A squad of monstrously powerful men emerges from the mist, their very auras distorting the air around them. One specific guy instantly triggers Zeke's radar. Pointing right at him, Zeke casually asks who the super depressing-looking dude is. Langus nearly has a heart attack hearing his friend openly disrespect a god-tier noble. Zeke shows absolutely zero filter. He straight up calls the Supreme family head out for his phenomenally ugly vibes. Before another suicidal sentence can leave his lips, Langus frantically slaps his hand over Zeke's mouth. Sweating bullets, he begs him to shut up before they both get erased from existence. Rolling his eyes at the extreme panic, Zeke finally agrees to zip it. His piercing gaze scans the heavy hitters, analyzing the terrifying forces of the Eldritch faction. A smirk tugs at his lips as he evaluates their combat power. He has to admit, they aren't completely pathetic. Having a squad packed entirely with 6-star warriors is a solid flex. But the absolute monster leading the pack is a different story. Balza El Dragon, the Supreme Head, radiates the suffocating power of a legendary 8-star warrior. In this modern era, that rank makes him practically a living god. Zeke recalls his past life, remembering when hitting 8 stars was a myth reserved for the absolute apex predators. It makes him genuinely curious about how many true monsters still walk the earth today. Leaning in close, Zeke whispers his final, brutally honest verdict to Langus. He absolutely loathes Balza's entire existence. Zeke honestly could not care less if this guy actually shares his DNA. But before he can even zone out, Balza steps up, unleashing a suffocating pressure over the entire courtyard. The man barely even raises his voice, simply commanding this fresh batch of recruits to become the literal flesh and blood of House Eldragon. But those quiet words hit like a freight train. Combined with his monstrous aura, every single student starts shaking in their boots, except for our boy, Zeke. Poor Langus is literally gasping for air beside him, complaining about the crushing gravity. Zeke, on the other hand, he barely feels a breeze from Balza's supposedly terrifying presence. Instead of fear, a completely different emotion boils inside his chest. It is a raw, unexplainable hatred burning deep in his soul. Dropping that mic, Balza turns on his heel and straight up vanishes from the stage, letting another high-ranking elder take over the show. This new guy starts hyping up the head of the house's grand expectations, but Zeke is just squinting at the stage, seriously wondering who this random blonde elder even is. With the absolute monster finally gone, the heavy tension in the air completely shatters. The rest of the rookies finally remember how to breathe, recovering from that insane power trip. The vibe totally shifts when an examiner steps up to the mic, getting everyone hyped for the official dormitory placements. Wait, what? Zeke blinks in pure confusion, totally assuming they were all just getting dumped into one massive barracks. Seeing his totally clueless expression, Langus plays the role of the ultimate guide. He breaks down the academy's massive layout, revealing 4 distinct living quarters. He explains that every rookie gets sorted into either the East, West, North, or South House, based on their official placement. Just seconds later, Zeke's name echoes through the speakers. He hops to his feet, throwing his new buddy a quick fist bump and wishing him luck. They trade some classic goodbye banter before parting ways. Turns out, our main character just scored a one-way ticket to the Academy's East Dorm. As he walks through the campus, he is absolutely mind-blown by how drastically the world has leveled up over the past 1,000 years. Clutching his crumpled map, he tries to decode the awful directions to find his new room. Panic starts creeping in, figuring his future roommate is definitely going to snap over him showing up this unbelievably late. Hey, it is not his fault. The campus is a literal maze. He finally spots his room number, takes a deep breath, and kicks the door wide open with peak main character energy, totally ready to charm whoever is sitting inside. But that epic smile immediately flatlines the second he locks eyes with the guy claiming the bottom bunk. No way. It is literally Langus. Staring at his annoying new buddy, Zeke just sighs, accepting that the universe must be pulling some twisted prank on him. Langus just flashes a goofy grin, totally thrilled about this twist of fate, and admits he was already dying of boredom all by himself. Changing the subject, Zeke asks if they have any brutal initiation quests today. Langus just shakes his head, giving him the all clear. The instructors literally ordered everyone to chill out and recharge before the real hell begins tomorrow. Of course, Zeke is totally clueless about this, because he was completely zoned out during the entire opening ceremony. He straight up admits this, with the most innocent, shameless smile ever. Langus just facepalms, genuinely wondering how this guy expects to survive when he cannot even listen to basic instructions. Giving up on the lecture, Langus flops back onto his bed. He tells Zeke to get some serious shut-eye, because tomorrow is going to be an absolute nightmare. Truth be told, Zeke's original game plan was to completely ghost this academy and speedrun the world on a solo adventure. But all this futuristic magic and crazy new society stuff, it actually hooked his attention. He decides to play the obedient student for a little while, just to gather some solid intel on what happened while he was dead for a millennium. Flash forward exactly 1 month, and the rookies are already going through absolute torture under their new instructor. The class is currently sweating bullets trying to master the infamous Dragon's Breath, a legendary technique completely copyrighted by the 15th Lord of House Eldragon. Their grumpy teacher barks orders, demanding they burn this mana flow into their muscle memory until they can activate it blindfolded in a war zone. Prowling through the ranks like a hawk, the instructor spots a few prodigies actually pulling it off. Front and center is Laika, the fiercely talented daughter of the big boss himself. Her mana control is so insanely crisp, she easily hits the 2nd-star rank. But honestly, the teacher's jaw actually drops when his eyes lock onto Zeke. While the rest of these kids are practically passing out, our boy is casually balancing a massive boulder on his head, gripping ridiculous stone dumbbells like they weigh absolutely nothing. Staring at this freak of nature, the instructor's brain short-circuits. He starts connecting the dots, fully convinced Zeke secretly inherited the terrifying strength of the house leader. But the math is just not adding up. How on earth did this street kid perfect a highly classified breathing style without a legendary master spoon-feeding it to him? The poor guy practically gives himself a migraine trying to figure it out, totally oblivious to the epic truth staring him right in the face. Meanwhile, Zeke is just internally cringing. He realizes this so-called prestigious Dragon's Breath is actually a ridiculously nerfed version of the Dragon King's Breath, the god-tier move he personally invented. In this universe, breathing arts are basically cheat codes. You suck pure ether from the atmosphere, cycle it through your veins, and explode your power levels to the absolute max. But unleashing its true potential? That completely depends on whether the user has the insane talent and massive brainpower to handle the recoil. That is exactly why these snobby noble houses lock their customized styles behind closed doors. Looking at this modern version, Zeke gives them credit for making it totally idiot-proof and super safe. But honestly, he thinks it is complete garbage. What is the point of a hype power-up if you have to stand absolutely still like a training dummy to use it? Back in his glory days, his original blueprint let warriors blast ether while sprinting through the battlefield, triggering absolutely devastating damage. The catch? It was so brutally difficult that barely anyone survived the training. Feeling bad for his descendants, Zeke actually dumbed down the formula back then, just so the weaker clan members could get a quick buff. He never in a million years imagined his watered-down tutorial mode would become their ultimate, supposedly unbeatable legacy, and endure for another 1,000 years. A spark of genuine respect flashes in Zeke's eyes, getting his gears turning. He realizes countless other legendary martial arts techniques must have evolved through the ages. Fast forward past the grueling training session, the cadets drag their battered bodies into the mess hall. While the rest of the rookies look like walking zombies, barely able to lift their spoons, our guy Zeke is absolutely demolishing his massive plate. He is inhaling calories with zero stress. Glancing over, he spots Langus looking completely wiped out, literally built like a deflated balloon. Zeke nudges him, warning that an empty tank means sloppy footwork on the battlefield. Barely keeping his eyes open, Langus practically begs to know what kind of cheat code Zeke is using. How is this dude radiating main character energy while everyone else is dead on their feet? Zeke just smirks, straight up roasting Langus for having a paper-thin stamina bar. He tells him to stop whining, chew his food, and grind harder. Mid-lecture, Zeke's sharp gaze sweeps the room, catching a few elite cadets, who are actually wolfing down their meals just like him. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as Laika steps up to his table, having zero clue about her VIP status. Zeke deadpan asks, "Who even are you?" Langus literally gags on his stew, his soul almost leaving his body as he violently leans in to whisper. He frantically hisses that she is the absolute top dog, the daughter of the head, but Zeke just shrugs, dropping a hilariously clueless statement that he had no idea. Langus is sweating bullets, panicking that mere peasants like them should not even breathe in her direction. Zeke stares blankly at his terrified friend, before casually dropping a massive bomb. He is also the head's son, just from the illegitimate side of the family tree. The silence that follows is deafening, as both Langus and Laika freeze. Laika's eyes narrow, demanding to know if he is bluffing. Zeke keeps chewing, flatly stating he has zero reason to cap about his bloodline. Shifting gears, Laika demands to know the secret behind his insane raw power, asking how he literally shattered a regeneration stone with his bare hands. She is leaning in, desperate for the martial arts secret, but Zeke delivers the ultimate flex. He simply replies that he did it because he is just built different. Noticing Langus's brain straight up short-circuiting beside him, Zeke snaps his fingers, ordering his buddy to snap out of it and finish his lunch. Refusing to be ignored, Laika steps directly into Zeke's personal space, dropping a heavy proposition. Zeke arches an eyebrow at the vague offer. Laika cuts the small talk, boldly demanding that he bow his head and become her personal attack dog. She offers to be his ultimate shield, pointing out that an outcast bastard like him desperately needs high-tier allies to survive this cutthroat academy. The deal is simple. Lend her his monstrous strength to seize the throne of the head, and she will shower him in glory and wealth. Once she rules the entire family, she drips honey into every word, painting a picture of supreme power, but Zeke's expression stays ice cold. He brutally shoots her down, stating he could not care less about her little gang. Laika's pride takes a hit, and she immediately jumps to the conclusion that this illegitimate scrub must be scheming to steal the throne for himself. While she yaps away with her wild conspiracy theories, Zeke activates his gamer vision, analyzing her aura. He notices she is already brushing the ceiling of the 2-star realm, a genuinely terrifying feat for someone her age. Cutting through her monologue, Zeke finally speaks up, telling the young heiress she can play her little Game of Thrones however she wants, because family politics bore him to absolute tears. Laika is hit with a wave of pure shock, but her stubbornness flares up, demanding to know what this mysterious wildcard actually desires. Zeke's patience snaps. In a flash of lethal speed, he plunges his knife deep into the solid wood table, while erupting with a suffocating, blood-chilling aura. He glares into her soul, making it crystal clear that he kneels to absolutely no one. He declares he walks alone, simply because the absolute apex predator needs no pack. The sheer weight of his killing intent crashes into Laika, shaking her core. Her mind races in disbelief, terrified that a nameless bastard's aura is actually forcing her instincts to scream in pure fear. Like a total menace, Zeke goes right back to chewing his meat, while Langus frantically waves his hands to defuse the bomb. But Laika's ego shatters, and she screams out a formal challenge for a duel. A brow twitches in mild surprise, but the demon inside Zeke never rejects an invitation to throw hands. Faster than a wildfire, the rumor mill explodes. The academy chat goes crazy. The untouchable princess is throwing down in the arena. A massive mob of cadets stampedes toward the training grounds, hungry for bloodshed. While Langus is having a full-blown panic attack, Zeke strolls into the arena like he is on a Sunday walk. Langus violently grabs him, screaming that he is about to fight the literal Grim Reaper in a skirt. Zeke just yawns, repeating that she is literally a nobody to him. He then squints at Langus, noticing his sudden stiff posture, and asks why his best friend is suddenly acting so ridiculously formal. Langus facepalms into another dimension, hissing that it is because Zeke is literally the boss's son. Zeke tilts his head, asking what exactly the big deal is. Sweating bullets, Langus tries to spoon-feed the hierarchy to this battle-crazy idiot, explaining that Laika is the golden child of Balza, cursed with the terrifying bloodline of Typhona. That means she carries the heavy legacy of one of the 4 legendary pillars, upholding the entire Eldragon Empire. He warns Zeke that she is a once-in-a-century prodigy who has completely weaponized every single lethal sword art from the Typhona clan. Unfazed, Zeke just scratches his head, coldly stating that she shares DNA with Balza. A wicked, battle-hungry grin stretches across Zeke's face. He starts chuckling, declaring that stepping into the unknown makes the fight 10 times more thrilling. The adrenaline junkie is fully hyped for the mystery box of a boss fight, while Langus screams that he is marching straight into his own funeral. Tearing his hair out, Langus demands to know why he agreed to this suicide mission. Zeke simply cracks his knuckles, stating it is an unspoken rule of honor. You never back down from a thrown gauntlet. Locking his predator gaze onto the arena, he sizes up Lika, admitting her stance screams pure, murderous intent. Across the dirt, Lika's voice booms like thunder, commanding the arrogant bastard to shut his mouth. With her legendary blade stabbed deep into the earth like a true battlefield commander, she glares daggers at Zeke, demanding to know if he is ready to have his ego violently shattered. With the stage set for an epic showdown, Langus scrambles out of the danger zone. He frantically yells for Zeke to watch his back as he bolts away. Left completely alone in the tension-filled arena, Zeke stares down his opponent, demanding to know why she is so absolutely obsessed with crushing him. Her eyes burn with raw ambition as she declares her ultimate goal to become the next supreme head of the family. To snatch that throne, she plans to utterly dominate Zeke and force his absolute loyalty. The ridiculous claim completely blindsides our guy. He stands there totally baffled, trying to figure out how her crazy power trip involves him at all. Laika's jaw nearly drops at his totally chilled-out vibe. She glares at him, questioning if he is seriously clueless about the dark secrets hiding within their own bloodline, especially the heavy reality of his illegitimate status. Zeke opens his mouth to drop the fact that he already knows, but she violently cuts him off. She aggressively breaks down the math, stating that counting him, exactly 5 ruthless heirs are locked in a bloodbath for the top spot. Out of everyone, Zeke is the literal outcast, completely lacking the sacred blood of the 4 great houses of Eldragon. The ultimate prize is absolute control for whichever house crowns the winner. That means every single candidate is sweating blood to dominate the Academy rankings and to survive the impending war against her monstrous brothers. Lika desperately needs powerful pawns. This massive lore drop leaves Zeke's brain doing gymnastics, but he eventually pieces the puzzle together. Staring daggers at him, Laika makes it crystal clear that she is fighting for sheer survival and total dominance, and without wasting another breath, she explodes forward like a predator. Pure determination radiates from her blade as she locks onto her prey, unleashing a vicious slash meant to slice him in half, but our main character effortlessly slides back. He casually sidesteps the deadly steel, letting the raw shockwave completely pulverize the stone floor. Refusing to take a loss, Laika instantly bounces back, fully weaponizing her rage for round 2. She unleashes a chaotic storm of heavy-hitting strikes, leaving the massive crowd absolutely shook. Gasps echo through the stands as everyone glazes her insane swordsmanship, completely hyped that she is dealing this much damage with a basic wooden blade. Fueled by the crowd's roaring energy, she cranks her assault into maximum overdrive. But the reality is almost comical. Zeke literally dances through the battlefield, flawlessly ghosting every single attack. The audience, totally blind to the truth, continues losing their minds over Laika's explosive display of power. Knowing she possesses the legendary blood of the patriarch, they hype themselves up, predicting she will end the match in mere seconds. But behind her fierce expression, Lika is secretly losing her mind. Pure frustration boils in her veins as her target just keeps casually bouncing out of her lethal range. The disrespect is insane because Zeke is practically yawning while dodging her ultimate combos, sending her into a massive spiral of self-doubt. Breaking the silence, Zeke casually drops some praise, hyping up her insane speed and the razor-sharp technique. She keeps throwing at him. He even admits she is totally outclassing your standard 1-star combatants. That compliment instantly triggers her. She screams at the top of her lungs, demanding he actually throw hands instead of just yapping. Since she practically begged for it, Zeke decides it is time to deliver a painful reality check. He effortlessly slips past her heavy slash and buries a lightning-fast fist right into her chest. The terrifying impact sends a massive shockwave shattering through her ribs, violently forcing a mouthful of blood from her lips. Her legs completely give out as she crashes to her knees, leaving the entire Academy audience dead silent. Gasping for air, she glares up at him, desperately begging to know why her blade cannot even graze his shadow, especially since she was literally born to be superior. Zeke keeps it 100% real, validating that she is definitely faster than the average 1-star rookies. But he hits her with the harsh truth. At the end of the day, she is still chained to the limitations of a mere 1-star tier. Refusing to accept reality, Laika snaps back, throwing the exact same rank back in his face. With a cold smirk, Zeke reveals his cheat code. He explains that her entire attack pattern is an open book, telegraphed by her breathing, every single micro-twitch of her muscles, and the absolute predictability of her gaze. On top of that brutal read, his combat experience completely dwarfs hers on a microscopic level. His massive flex of superiority hits her pride like a truck, instantly forcing her back onto her feet. Burning with a terrifying rage, She launches herself at him, gripping her hilt, absolutely thirsty for his blood. But even with the element of surprise on her side, Zeke just casually backflips out of the danger zone like a total boss. Her blind rage leaves her defense wide open, and our overpowered protagonist mercilessly punishes the mistake. He blasts her with a monstrous strike, launching her violently across the arena. She crashes brutally into the solid barrier, kicking up a massive dust screen that swallows the battlefield. The entire student body is left totally speechless, their minds short-circuiting at the thought of the golden child actually taking a heavy loss. Meanwhile, Langus is absolutely hyped. He sprints back into the combat zone, screaming his lungs out to praise his boy's insane power. But Zeke's face stays dead serious. He sharply warns his friend that the curtain has not dropped just yet. Deep down, he is genuinely surprised the girl did not just crumble from that absolute nuke of a punch. As the heavy smoke finally settles, the silhouette of a battered, shaking warrior emerges. Laika forces herself up from the rubble, her eyes screaming pure defiance. Panicking, Langus desperately begs her to throw in the towel, warning her that she is literally knocking on death's door. But Zeke barks an order for his friend to back away instantly. The safety wheels are coming off, and he drops a harsh disclaimer that any collateral damage is not his problem. His sharp instincts were right on the money, and he finally confirms the terrifying truth. She has shattered her limits and awakened as a 2-star powerhouse. As she stands tall, a violently glowing aura erupts from her body. The crowd collectively loses their minds, instantly recognizing the legendary signature of a 2-star awakening. Reaching this god-tier realm literally unlocks the ability to manifest pure, destructive life force directly into the physical world, elevating combat to an entirely different dimension. This terrifying energy projection is the legendary power known as Aura. Dripping with newfound supremacy, she flashes a deadly smirk, mockingly thanking him for the trauma that triggered her evolution. Now fueled by blinding rage, she rockets toward him like a missile, fully intent on erasing him from existence. Her blade carves through the air, leaving a blinding trail of golden energy in its wake, forcing our guy to mentally admit she just massively leveled up her speed and lethality. Still acting cocky, he continues to play games with her, completely unaware that he is about to make a massive miscalculation. A razor-sharp blade of energy slices across his cheek. Laika smirks as she watches absolute awe wash over his face. She completely flexes her 2-star aura right in front of him. She promises Zeke that he is about to taste the devastating power of the true Thunder Spirit Great Sword Arts. But instead of backing down, Zeke is literally buzzing with excitement at the chance to witness an ancient technique he has never seen before. The hype is beyond real as he waits for her next move. Without wasting a single second, Laika unleashes her legendary Thunderlight Flash. The strike blitzes Zeke before his muscles can even twitch, leaving him completely mind-blown that she can actually control pure lightning. He has to admit that her power scaling is completely insane, yet Laika realizes he is dead silent on the regrets, mostly because a massive grin is plastered across his face. Furious at his disrespect, she blasts him with another savage technique, forcing Zeke to realize that her raw output is just too overwhelming for his current stats. He knows perfectly well that his physical vessel is not built to survive this kind of brutal punishment just yet. And while he is busy calculating his rapidly dropping health, the entire crowd of spectators is losing their minds. They are absolutely speechless seeing a mere 1-star warrior actually surviving a clash against the legendary Laika. Zeke's combat genius kicks in, realizing her attack patterns are the exact same, but that 2-star awakening has basically handed her a massive explosive buff. He drops the ego and admits her technique is flawless, especially since coating a human body in raw lightning was considered literally impossible 1,000 years ago. Reading her footwork, Zeke knows he could easily slip in a fatal counterattack, but his curiosity to witness her ultimate form holds him back. So he decides to just tank the damage like an absolute boss. Laika's blood boils, seeing the sheer audacity of his unbroken smile. How can he grin while staring death in the face? She realizes his insane confidence is practically radiating off his body, and she makes it her personal mission to shatter that arrogance into a million pieces. She launches forward with a lethal, lightning-fast art that offers absolutely zero room for escape. Zeke watches the blinding light connect, launching his body through the air until he violently shatters the arena wall. A deafening explosion rocks the stadium, sending sheer panic through the crowd. But as the blinding dust clears, this absolute unit is somehow still standing, wearing that exact same infuriating smirk. Pushed past her absolute limit, she summons another devastating bolt to force him down to his knees. While Lagnesh frantically sprints into the chaos, he screams at her to pull back, but she refuses to drop her weapon while her opponent is still breathing. She firmly declares that holding back now would be the ultimate disrespect to his warrior spirit. She offers him one final lifeline, promising mercy if he drops his sword and swears absolute loyalty to her name. but Zeke responds with dead silence. Staring into his eyes, she realizes that despite his status as an illegitimate heir, the burning pride of the Eldragon bloodline runs incredibly deep within his veins. Sick of his arrogant refusal to bend the knee, Laika decides to erase him completely with her maximum output. The atmosphere heavily shifts as she channels the ultimate thunder spirit greatsword arts, summoning the catastrophic heavenly thunder right down on his head. Paralyzed by the crushing pressure, Zeke takes the world-shattering impact head-on. Millions of volts tear through his nervous system, ripping a brutal scream of agony from his lungs. As the blinding storm finally settles, his scorched body collapses onto the ruined earth, totally lifeless. Lika plants her smoking blade into the rubble, convinced she has secured the victory. But then, a terrifying chill runs down her spine as a familiar voice whispers from behind her, casually claiming that the puzzle pieces have finally clicked together. She spins around in pure horror, only to find Zeke standing tall, his entire body crackling with wild blue sparks of his own, awakened lightning. Her brain practically short-circuits as she demands to know how he stole her elemental power. Honestly, Zeke is just as mind-blown as she is, since he didn't even realize the world called this insane energy electricity. Strutting forward with unshakable swagger, he casually admits he has absolutely no clue how the mechanics actually work. He just drops the ultimate flex, revealing he used his own body as a punching bag specifically to analyze her core techniques, and his body just magically copied the skill on its own. Hearing this utterly broken logic, Laika feels like she is losing her absolute mind, because instantly downloading a bloodline trait defies every law of the universe. Zeke breaks it down, explaining that every time her strikes connected, he had been secretly cycling his Dragon King's breath, forcing her volatile energy to violently react with his own internal aura. The intense pressure literally forged a lightning core within his soul, granting him total mastery over the element. He casually shrugs off the deep lore, but easily deduces that Laika was born with a legendary elemental physique. Knowing her sword arts are heavily guarded secrets, he realizes her entire bloodline must share this overpowered genetic code. But the greatest loot he gained today was discovering that raw source power can actually merge flawlessly with elemental lightning. Flashing a wicked grin, he literally thanks her for being the ultimate stepping stone to push his core all the way into the 2-star realm. Dripping with confidence, he announces that round 2 is just starting. Consumed by blind rage, Lika slashes at his neck, but Zeke merely smiles as lightning explodes from his pores. He launches himself with such terrifying momentum that even his own brain cannot keep up with his newly awakened speed. The electric source power is actively supercharging his nervous system, overdriving his muscles to unlock god-tier physical strength. He treats this lethal upgrade like a shiny new skill tree, entirely confident he will master the insane agility in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, Lognesh is completely frozen on the sidelines, his eyes desperately struggling to track the explosive shockwaves tearing up the battlefield. He watches in pure awe as Zeke gracefully dances around her deadly strikes without breaking a sweat, pushing Laika into an absolute state of mental breakdown. "Are you making fun of me?" she snaps. But Zeke just shakes his head. His eyes are dead serious. He actually considers her a legitimate threat on the battlefield. Desperate to catch him off guard, Laika unleashes a massive, sweeping blade strike from a distance. But Zeke weaves through the deadly attack like it is absolute child's play. The playtime is officially over. Zeke declares he is ending this clash right here, right now. And to do it, he is going to invent a brand new technique on the spot. It has been ages since he last forged a custom move in the heat of battle. Lika freezes in her tracks, her brain completely short-circuiting at his insane claim. He smirks, confirming she heard him perfectly loud and clear. He is literally forging a custom martial art form right in the middle of their fight. Pure shock washes over her face. Was he secretly trained by some hidden martial arts master? She racks her brain, but cannot connect him to any legendary noble house. Seeing her completely spaced out, Zeke does not hesitate for a microsecond. He explodes forward like a fired bullet, closing the gap in the blink of an eye. Boom! He unleashes his freshly minted masterpiece. Dragon-slaying arts, Tempest of Thunder. A devastating barrage of lightning bolts absolutely obliterates her defenses. Laika collapses to her knees. Zeke flashes a calm smile, officially calling the match. But the damage is way too severe. She slams into the dirt, her body screaming in pure agony. Desperation takes over, as Lika drags herself toward her fallen blade, her mind completely shattered by the bitter taste of defeat. This was not supposed to happen. She was destined to crush her brothers and claim the throne as the next head of the family. But while she spirals into a pit of self-loathing, Zeke casually strolls over. His shadow falls over her as he drops a massive bombshell, praising her insane strength and admitting she pushed him to his absolute limits. He thrives on evolving mid-battle. To him, this clash was a top-tier learning experience, not a waste of energy. Flashing a totally relaxed smile, he asks if they can run it back someday. He is already hyped for their next legendary showdown, completely oblivious to the sheer gravity of the moment. Meanwhile, Laika can only stare up at him, utterly paralyzed by shock and dread. Fast forward a few hours, and we cut to her terrifying father, Balza, deep inside a gloomy dungeon. He is absolutely slaughtering monsters like they are made of paper. Just a single strike from the first form of his dragon combat arts obliterates an entire horde without him even breaking a sweat. Right in the middle of this absolute bloodbath, a nervous scout rushes into the raid zone to deliver a breaking status report about his daughter. The guy proudly announces that Lika just hit the 2-star rank, but the ruthless patriarch does not even blink at the news. The messenger scrambles to hype her up, explaining that hitting such a milestone at her age is genuinely insane. At this crazy pace, she could literally unlock 5 stars before graduation. But Balza brutally shuts him down, declaring that raw talent means 0 if you lack the killer instinct to weaponize it. He orders the lackey to step back and only return when she actually proves her worth in real combat. Sensing the tension, the scout nervously stutters out that Laika just suffered a crushing defeat. Balza naturally assumes she got wrecked by an upperclassman, but then the guy drops the ultimate plot twist. The warrior who completely dismantled Lika was none other than Zeke, his forgotten illegitimate son. The name sparks a dusty memory in Balza's mind, tying back to the incredible woman who gave birth to the boy. He grudgingly admits she possessed terrifying potential, but he knows she passed away the moment the boy was born. His cold eyes narrow as he wonders how a fatherless outcast managed to awaken the insane combat skills needed to completely body a 2-star prodigy. The scout's voice trembles as he reveals the wildest part of the story. Zeke grinded his way to the 2-star realm entirely solo, 0 mentors, 0 backing, just pure, unmatched determination driving him to the top. The second those words hit the air, the aura around Balza shifts into something demonic. He coldly announces that it is officially time to trigger the first trial. The scout practically chokes on his own breath. He panics, begging his boss to reconsider because it is way too early for such a bloodbath. But Balza is totally merciless, declaring that the Grim Reaper does not care about schedules. In this savage world, only the absolute strongest earn the right to breathe. With ice in his veins, Balza states that anyone who fails to survive this brutal crucible is nothing but worthless trash, destined for the grave. Terrified by his master's overwhelming bloodlust, the officer has no choice but to bow down and execute the fatal command. Balza drops an absolute bombshell on his subordinate, commanding the officer to summon Freya herself. The guard does a massive double take, demanding a repeat of that wild order. Balza just smirks and locks it in. He wants Freya front and center for the trial, all because Zeke's insane potential caught his eye. Bowing out, the officer dips to make it happen. Left alone in the shadows, Balza's calm facade crumbles into pure hype. He is totally stoked to see what kind of crazy power this kid is hiding. Cut to the training grounds. The rookie class is grinding through their basic drills under the instructor's watchful eye. But our boy Zeke? He is literally built different. He is casually deadlifting boulders 5 times his own body weight, completely zoned into his own intense breathing rhythm. Meanwhile, the rest of the squad is sweating buckets just trying to grasp the dragon's breath technique. To Zeke, this so-called advanced breathing is basically child's play. He figures literally anyone could master it in their sleep. Out of nowhere, Langus catches sight of Zeke's completely unhinged workout routine. Confused, he walks over and asks why the main character is blowing off the group practice. Zeke just blinks, totally clueless as to why this guy is even pressing him. When Langus brings up the legendary dragon combat arts, Zeke drops the ultimate flex. He calmly states he has already mastered it, leaving Langus completely shook. Langus immediately calls cap on that claim. The instructor literally just showed them the moves 2 seconds ago. There is 0 chance anyone could speedrun that kind of mastery. Sighing, Zeke decides it is time for a quick reality check. He calls out Langus's horribly blocked ether flow. Letting the massive boulder crash into the dirt, he steps up. He orders his classmate to turn his back. The moment Langus complies, Zeke strikes him right between the shoulder blades, blasting a surge of pure, refined ether energy straight into his core. Zeke casually explains that this is how real energy is supposed to flow. The heavy blockage vanishes instantly, and Langus is overwhelmed by the insane power-up pulsing through his veins. Still buzzing from the upgrade, he stammers out a massive thank you. And in that exact second, the terrifying truth about Zeke's god-tier strength finally clicks in Langus's mind. Zeke actually pulled it off flawlessly, but he is low-key annoyed that Langus ever doubted his sheer genius. Langus frantically waves his hands to clear the air, explaining that it is a massive misunderstanding. He reveals that he has only ever learned from his old man, forcing him to constantly grind in complete isolation. But Zeke, the dude is already an absolute monster, easily crushing Laika solo. Langus figures the dragon combat arts must be a total snooze fest for a prodigy like Zeke, but our boy shuts that down instantly. Zeke praises the fact that the technique's rock-solid stability is actually mind-blowing. Way back in the day, his own descendants totally trashed this exact fighting style, whining that it was way too complicated and insanely difficult. But beneath that complexity lies a devastating combat art of overwhelming power that flawlessly blends countless lethal fighting stances into one. Plus, clashing with Lika just unlocked a brand new evolutionary form for Zeke's arsenal. The ultimate move he used to completely obliterate that dragon, that was the legendary final form, and Zeke is incredibly hyped to see how generations have polished this masterpiece. Realizing he has squeezed every drop of knowledge from the dragon arts, Zeke decides it is time to hit the gym for raw physical conditioning. But out of nowhere, Langus drops a massive bombshell, humbly begging Zeke to do him the insane honor of becoming his master. Langus pours his heart out, desperately wanting to reach god-tier strength, no matter how brutal the grind gets. Catching everyone off guard, Zeke actually agrees, spotting real, raw potential in the kid's burning eyes. Langus is literally vibrating with hype when a super familiar voice echoes from the shadows, demanding to join the training squad too. Stepping into the light is none other than Lika, cheeks slightly flushed. She finally swallows her massive pride to acknowledge the cold, hard truth that Zeke's combat skills are terrifyingly superior. Lika straight up admits his power is off the charts, confessing that their explosive showdown completely shattered her ego into a million pieces. Zeke is totally blindsided by this curveball, but Lika doubles down, declaring she needs massive power to crush her arrogant brothers and eventually dethrone Zeke himself. Tossing her pride completely out the window, she practically begs him to forge her into a total weapon, but Zeke dramatically pauses to weigh his options, sending Lika into an absolute spiral of pure panic. Her anxiety turns to sheer awe when she realizes Zeke is fully down to mentor a direct rival for the family throne. He smoothly assures her that sharing his secrets is not an issue, but he narrows his eyes, questioning if her battle-worn body can even handle it. With a smirk, Lika flexes the fact that she chugged a high-tier healing potion, leaving her 100% fresh. Our ancient hero Zeke is absolutely mind-blown by this broken modern cheat item. Langus jumps in, hyping up Lika's insane resilience, even without the magical juice. Zeke nods in deep respect, marveling at this wild new era, where literal miracles are just bottled up. Keeping it real, Lika admits that without that elixir, his devastating strikes would have left her paralyzed in bed for a whole month. Fixing her intense gaze on him, she demands to know if they have a deal, and Zeke chuckles, saying he would never reject a promising young talent. Both teens immediately freeze, giving him massive side-eye for his weirdly ancient vocabulary, since he is supposed to be a teenager just like them. Sweating bullets, Zeke hastily changes the subject before they can expose his reincarnated soul. Flipping the script, he asks Lika if she is seriously okay, bowing to the master, who literally beat her to a pulp just hours ago. Lika's eyes burn with fierce determination. She doesn't have the luxury of coddling her bruised ego or crying over lost pride. She is ready to crawl through actual hell if it means seizing the position of family head for herself. Leaning in, Zeke questions this borderline toxic obsession with becoming the clan leader, pointing out it is the exact same ambition she was screaming. Mid-battle, the atmosphere turns heavy as Lika drops a massive truth bomb. Failing to take the throne sentences her to a forced, loveless marriage, and not just any wedding, but a twisted, purely political chess move to sell her off. She is doomed to be chained to some random cousin or a complete stranger she has never even locked eyes with. Disgust flashes across Zeke's face at this dark reality, and Lika bitterly explains that the legendary Eldragon blood flowing through her veins is seen as the ultimate jackpot for the four great houses. Their unique, terrifying magical genetics make the women of the family nothing more than ultimate prize trophies, to be used and discarded. Pure, unfiltered wrath explodes from Zeke's aura as the sickening truth finally clicks in his brain. He cannot fathom how his own flesh and blood could treat human beings like literal breeding stock. Clenching his fists, Zeke makes a blood vow right then and there to completely annihilate this garbage, outdated tradition. Just as the tension reaches its boiling point, a loud boom echoes as the instructor calls everyone's attention to a brand new, top-tier VIP joining the faculty. He announces that this mysterious expert arrived, despite having an insanely stacked schedule. In a flash of crimson, a red-haired woman literally materializes out of thin air, her hand darting out to pinch Lika's ear. But Lika's battle-hardened instincts instantly take over, allowing her to dash backward a split second before contact. The mysterious woman flashes a dangerous smirk, heavily praising the young girl's Felton's razor-sharp reaction time. Meanwhile, Langus is practically shaking in his boots, breaking out into a cold sweat, and he desperately grips Zeke's shoulder because his senses did not even register her arrival. The head instructor officially drops the name of this terrifying newcomer as Freya. As a lethal operative of the infamous Black Dragon Corps, she flashes a sweet but deadly smile, welcoming her new prey. Freya's sharp eyes immediately lock onto Zeke, calling him out for not even flinching at her ghost-like entrance. Without missing a beat, Zeke completely nukes her massive ego, bluntly stating that her little magic trick was nothing special. But then his lips curl into a knowing smirk, tossing her a bone by admitting her stealth technique is somewhat entertaining. Hearing his arrogant but undeniable confidence, Freya finally realizes exactly why the head of the family is sweating bullets over this kid. Zeke couldn't care less about Freya's irritating stealth tricks. His eyes are glued to her martial arts. He tracks the raw, pulsing energy spiraling through her legs and realizes it's a completely foreign technique, unlike anything in his vast memory. His battle blood immediately starts boiling at the thought of clashing with her, because she's definitely hiding some serious firepower. Freya suddenly steps up with the other instructors, commanding the absolute silence of the rookie class. The headmaster casually drops a massive bombshell. Freya is an elite 6-star dragon. He barks at the freshmen to listen up and show some respect. While the rest of the rookies are literally quaking in their boots from her suffocating aura, Zeke just stands there, completely, utterly unfazed. The wide-eyed kids practically beg to learn her legendary moves, and a sly smirk creeps onto Freya's face as she agrees. But there's a massive catch. They have to survive her little entrance exam first. Instant dread washes over the crowd, as the word test triggers their fight or flight response. Freya laughs it off, calling it a total breeze, before summoning a glowing crystal orb. The mission? Guard this fragile sphere with their lives while surviving an entire month on the infamous Poison Dragon Mountain. The freshmen absolutely lose their minds, but our boy Zeke doesn't even blink. A wave of intense nostalgia hits him. It's been ages since that cursed name crossed his ears. This mountain isn't just a landmark, it's a literal death trap crawling with toxic monstrosities. The flora is so incredibly lethal that just grazing a random leaf would send a normal guy straight to the afterlife. Zeke smirks, remembering how he used to casually use that hellscape as his personal gym back in his previous life. He seriously doubts these fragile kids can handle the heat. Cutting through the chatter, Freya lays down the absolute law. Anyone who vanishes, or lets their orb shatter into a million pieces, is instantly booted from the trial. A terrified kid raises a trembling hand to ask about the penalty for failing. Freya's eyes go cold as she promises them immediate expulsion. To combat the toxic atmosphere, she orders them to circulate their mana using the legendary Dragon's Breath technique. She brushes off their terror, claiming it's a walk in the park, provided their shiny rocks stay totally intact. Lika desperately screams about the nightmare-fueled beasts roaming the peaks, but Freya just glares back, bluntly telling them to slaughter anything that moves. It's a brutal, zero-sum game. Survive for 30 days, or become monster food. Utter chaos erupts among the newbies, but the sadistic instructor tells them to chill out. They still have a massive 5-day grace period. Before stepping foot in hell, they must select and master a foundational martial art from House Eldragon to keep themselves from getting ripped apart. Lock in a combat style, she claims, and survival is practically guaranteed. But her tone turns ice cold as she drops a heavy disclaimer. If they fail to grasp the techniques within those crucial 5 days, their deaths are completely on them. A desperate rookie begs to know if their instructor will swoop in to save them from getting eaten alive. Freya looks them dead in the eye and coldly confirms that nobody is coming to rescue them. To an absolute monster like Freya, this suicide mission is basically a vacation, and she expects them to clear it without breaking a sweat. Even Zeke is utterly baffled by this insanity, wondering if the prestigious family has completely lost their collective minds. Freya snaps her fingers, ordering the meat shields to step up and claim their technique manuals. Langus is practically having a panic attack over the choices, until Zeke smoothly points him straight toward the spear arts. He casually reminds the anxious kid of his solid spear work during the entrance exams, and instantly, Langus locks in his weapon of choice. Zeke then pivots, catching Lika staring blankly at the overwhelming rows of scrolls. Without skipping a beat, he tells her to grab the heavy axe manual. Lika's jaw drops to the floor, aggressively questioning why a girl like her needs a massive battle axe. Zeke just shoves his hands in his pockets and walks off, cryptically stating it will patch up her fatal combat flaws. Knowing the guy is an absolute genius, she bites the bullet and grabs the axe scroll. With their fates sealed in paper, Freya barks at them to train like absolute maniacs before time runs out. Slacking off even for a single second, she guarantees, will earn them a one-way ticket to the grave. Just when the dread peaks, Freya drops a massive plot twist to spice up the bloodshed. She gleefully reveals that the elite upperclassmen from the inner sanctum are going to be hunting them down like prey. These ruthless seniors are dropping in with a single, brutal objective, shattering those precious crystal orbs. Freya shrugs it off, claiming the sheer number of freshmen gives them a fighting chance. Hearing this, Langus's soul practically leaves his body, realizing they have to survive venomous abominations and bloodthirsty veterans simultaneously is just too much. Laika bites her lip, fully admitting that, clashing with the senior elites is going to be a nightmare, considering they are all 2-star rankers or completely above her league. Staring death in the face, she predicts a massive massacre of the freshman class. Zeke nods at the grim reality, but swiftly advises them to squad up in duos, or trios, to stack the odds. He points out a massive loophole. Absolutely nothing in the rules stops them from jumping the cocky upperclassmen as a mob. Strength in numbers is their only lifeline. Desperate for a carry, Langus begs to know Zeke's grand strategy, only for the absolute madman to announce a solo run. Why? Because wandering a death zone alone is just way more entertaining. Lika opens her mouth to scream at his stupidity, but pauses, remembering Zeke is literally that guy, and probably has the insane power to back up the arrogance. Flashing a confident smirk, Zeke casually walks away, dropping a chill suggestion to go grab some lunch. 5 agonizing days later, the heavily armed rookie squad assembles at the terrifying entrance of the Death Mountain. Freya is already there, soaking up the gloomy, oppressive atmosphere like it is a beach day. The absolute perfect backdrop for a massacre. After a final, sadistic monologue, she officially kicks off the survival games. Naturally, Langus is already sweating bullets before taking a single step. Langus hesitates, the heavy weight of his commoner status making him question if he even belongs in a high-tier noble like Laika's squad. But his imposter syndrome shatters the second Celine chimes in, revealing she is also rocking the commoner tag in this elite lineup. Add Raymond to the mix, and the pattern becomes crystal clear. This entire strike team is built purely from common-born students. Lika completely shuts down the class divide, making it known she does not care about fancy bloodlines. She handpicked this crew for one reason only, their absolute monster-level potential. Hyped beyond belief, Langus instantly promises to leave everything on the battlefield for her. Celine and Raymond echo that same fiery energy, swearing to completely shatter her wildest expectations. Meanwhile, Zeke is firmly locked into his lone wolf era. He throws a nod of respect to Laika's freshly forged alliance, calling them an absolute powerhouse. With his piercing gaze, Zeke easily reads their hidden stats. He realizes Lika just drafted the absolute heavy hitters of the class, silently praising her eagle-eyed scouting. He gives Langus a reassuring smile, hyping him up by declaring their squad practically a walking cheat code. Watching from the sidelines, Freya is actually impressed to see these rookies partying up. It is a massive brain play, considering most of them barely know which end of a weapon to hold. After confirming everyone is clutching their crystal orbs, she drops the ultimate survival objective. Keep this orb safe for one entire agonizing month in the wild. The win condition is brutally simple. If you are still holding an orb when the clock runs out, you survive the cut. But then she drops an absolute bombshell. Every single orb looks exactly the same, which silently screams, one thing stealing from your classmates is officially on the menu, and the nightmare does not stop there. Freya grins, revealing that the second they set foot on that mountain, ruthless upperclassmen are going to start hunting them down for their loot. The seniors are already licking their chops off-screen, openly mocking these zero-star newbies and treating this exam like a totally free farming session. Panic instantly ripples through the crowd. With the terrifying reality check wrapped up, Freya barks the order to move out, kicking off the absolute madness. The rookies absolutely bolt for the tree line. Mid-dash, Laika throws a glance over her shoulder, telling Zeke to stay alive, and he tosses the exact same warning right back. While the entire class is practically sprinting for their lives, Zeke just stands there vibing. Freya raises an eyebrow, asking if he actually plans on participating today. Flashing total unbothered energy, Zeke refuses to join the rookie panic. Once the dust settles, he casually strolls into the lethal forest like he is on a weekend hike. Watching the chaos unfold, the head instructor starts sweating bullets. He turns to Freya, deeply terrified that this brutal survival test is way above their pay grade. He argues that these kids are literal day one noobs. Sure, they know basic theory, but their actual live combat experience is tragically close to zero. But Freya does not even flinch. With an ice-cold smirk, she brushes off his panic, coolly stating that everything will play out exactly as it should. Freya waves off the danger. Sure, the mountain is crawling with beasts, but they are basically low-level trash. She reminds the nervous instructor that the freshmen are moving in packs. Survival in numbers, right? But a wicked glint flashes in her eyes. She has a little surprise waiting in the shadows ready to be unleashed. The instructor catches that sinister undertone, demanding answers. But Freya just smirks and brushes it off. Pivoting to the upperclassmen, she gives the green light. The seniors absolutely explode off the starting line, hungry to crush the freshmen's dreams. A twisted smile creeps across Freya's face. She cannot wait to see who actually crawls out of this nightmare alive. Fast forward a bit, and a squad of seniors spots Zeke, standing dead alone in the woods. To them, He looks like a free kill. They swarm him instantly. A deadly arrow slices through the air, but Zeke snatches it barehanded without even flinching. A completely unhinged, maniacal laugh rips from his throat. "Took you guys long enough," he taunts. Ice-cold dread instantly floods the senior's veins. This is definitely not the reaction they expected from a helpless junior. While their brains are still glitching out, Zeke explodes off the ground, closing the distance in a flash with a psychotic grin plastered on his face. He looks like a straight-up sleep paralysis demon. Cut to exactly 1 week later in the exam. Laika's squad is caught in a brutal grinding session against a swarm of tree frogs. Moving like a well-oiled machine, they absolutely shred through the mob. Laika hypes up her crew, praising their flawless synergy. But honestly, the rest of the team is just standing there utterly speechless at Laika's raw lethality. She is one-shotting these beasts left and right. She casually shrugs off the hype, reminding them that as a 2-star awakener, these overgrown toads are literally zero threat. But more importantly, she is genuinely hyped about their insane power leveling over the past week. Both Celine and Raymond just broke through to the 1-star realm. The duo is absolutely buzzing, but they immediately bounce the credit back to Laika, knowing she hard-carried them. Then there is Langus, still sitting at 0 stars, looking like he just lost his puppy. Sensing his totally shattered vibe, the squad immediately rallies around him. They remind him that his base stats have definitely spiked, and leveling up is not a race. A faint smile finally breaks through Langus's gloom. Lika drops some hard facts, pointing out that slaughtering these monsters as an unawakened human is actually mind-blowing. Plus, she brings up his secret weapon, that hardcore training camp, with Zeke. His spearmanship has become dangerously precise. An awakening is right around the corner, she promises him. With the sun dipping below the horizon, Laika calls for a tactical retreat to their safe zone. Navigating this monster-infested hellscape blindly is basically suicide. But the moment they step into their camp, the vibe turns totally toxic. A senior is chilling in their spot. Weapons are drawn instantly as they lock into combat stances. Laika steps up, asking if he is hunting for their core crystal. The senior gives a cocky nod, confirming he is here to rob them blind. The heavy aura hitting the air tells Laika everything she needs to know. This guy is a solid 2-star threat. She aggressively tells him to back off, warning him that a 1 versus 4 is terrible math, but a smug grin spreads across his face. Who said I was alone? 3 more upperclassmen melt out of the shadows, all radiating 1-star energy and boxing them in. The leader starts talking trash, mocking Laika's stats. Sure, she hits hard, but there is no way she can solo his crew while babysitting. Dead weight. He demands an instant surrender, but Laika's eyes flare with defiance. In a split second, both team leaders violently clash. "Just stay alive until I crush this guy," she screams to her squad. Absolute chaos erupts across the campsite. As the freshmen clash with the seniors, the upperclassmen demand they drop their loot, but Laika's crew refuses to fold. Langus gets isolated against a seriously beefed-up 1-star bully. Panic spikes as he scrambles for a survival strategy. Suddenly, his mind rewinds to that brutal sparring session with Zeke. He had asked the main character for the ultimate cheat code against overpowered enemies. Zeke's blunt answer? Just roll over and die. While Langus was standing there totally stunned, Zeke dropped some harsh logic. "It is just basic math," Zeke explained. "A 0-star, trying to solo a 3-star, or 4-star beast is just a fancy way to commit suicide." But then, a sharp gleam hit Zeke's eyes. Against a 1-star though, that is a completely different game. Breaking down the exam's power scaling, Zeke revealed the mountain's level cap was strictly 2 stars, meaning the absolute worst human threats they would face were also capped at 2 stars. Because of that, Zeke smirked. "You actually have a shot." He leaned in, dropping the masterclass strategy. "It is painfully simple. You just wait for them to slip up." Langus looked totally lost, but Zeke pressed on. That split second is all you need to completely hijack the momentum against a 1-star. Desperate, Langus asked how to force that perfect opening. Zeke's eyes turned deadly serious. "You tank the hits, you bite down, you survive, and you endure until they get sloppy." Terror grips Langus's soul, but Zeke's cold reality check hits harder. He is facing an absolute powerhouse. Forging his own opening is purely a pipe dream. Zeke's strict order? Survive the onslaught, even if his bones are shattering. Breaking under the pressure guarantees absolute defeat. Yet, the ruthless mentor promises that with his current combat prowess, holding the line against a beast like Laika is completely possible. Doubt clouds Langus's eyes, forcing Zeke to hammer a harsh truth into his skull. Absolute belief is the only path to victory. Plus, overanalyzing will just get him killed. He shouldn't waste energy hunting for a blind spot, because an arrogant enemy will naturally expose their throat. When that split second arrives, his spear must pierce through with lethal precision. Snapped back to reality, clashing against a towering foe. Zeke's icy wisdom burns in Langus's mind. He accepts his severe power gap, but yielding is not an option. He must weather the storm. After agonizing minutes of deflected strikes, the enraged enemy loses his cool. Launching into the sky, the senior prepares a devastating downward crash. But this arrogant maneuver? It is exactly the fatal flaw our underdog was praying for. Thrusting his spear with explosive force, he completely paralyzes his attacker. The defeated senior's eyes bulge in absolute disbelief, while Langus shatters his limits, officially awakening as a one-star warrior. Meanwhile, Lika is orchestrating an absolute bloodbath against her own opponent, treating a fellow two-star like absolute trash. Her overwhelming dominance stems entirely from the lethal sword arts Zeke drilled into her. Flashing her blade, she completely eclipses the senior and brutally cuts him down for daring to target her squad. Leaving the broken upperclassman in the dust, the fierce swordswoman regroups, discovering her comrades have totally wiped the floor with their enemies too. The squad erupts in hype, showering Langus with massive respect for unlocking his highly anticipated first star. Basking in the glory, he flashes a proud grin, letting the victory sink in. With their newly upgraded arsenal, Lika fiercely declares they are more than ready to crush any higher-tier threats, now that the entire squad is officially ranked up. As the adrenaline fades, she cannot help but wonder how their monstrous leader is faring. Plot twist. Zeke is currently out here treating the arrogant upperclassmen like absolute punching bags. The lucky few who manage to sprint away are screaming for their lives, branding him an otherworldly demon. Watching them scatter like pathetic insects, our overpowered main character sighs, genuinely disappointed that nobody has the spine to actually clash with him. Meanwhile, the terrified seniors are absolutely losing their minds. How is a mere freshman turning them into prey when they were supposed to be the apex predators? Panic takes over, and one senior dramatically eats dirt, serving himself up on a silver platter. Closing the distance instantly, Zeke releases a suffocating aura, commanding the coward to stand his ground. The sheer, bone-chilling bloodlust dripping from Zeke's words is so devastatingly heavy, the senior's brain simply shuts down, making him pass out cold. A dark smirk creeps onto Zeke's face as he roasts their pathetic display. Weren't these guys barking pretty loudly just a few hours ago? Shifting his piercing gaze, his heightened senses instantly lock onto a hidden instructor, observing from the shadows. He casually invites the spy to grab a front-row seat to the massacre, since playing Peeping Tom is his only job. Paralyzed by fear, the staff member stays hidden, refusing to step into the crossfire. Seeing this cowardice, our merciless protagonist casually decides to resume his terrifying game of cat and mouse with the seniors. Sweating bullets, the concealed instructor is completely paralyzed by shock. Not only is this freshman single-handedly slaughtering veterans, but his sensory perception is also god tier. The panicked spy realizes he must urgently escalate this absolute nightmare to Freya. Cutting to the command center, the top brass violently assemble for a status briefing. The tense faculty informs Freya that 7 brutal days of the survival exam have officially passed. Looking at the bloody statistics, roughly 30% of the rookies have already been eliminated. Yet, the surviving candidates are evolving at a terrifying pace, meaning the purge is practically over. A satisfied smirk graces Freya's lips as she demands an update on the upperclassmen hunters. Suddenly, a suffocating silence chokes the room as the instructors swallow hard. Losing her patience, the fierce commander demands they spit it out, threatening them to stop sugarcoating the truth. Trembling, the scouts finally drop the bomb. The elite seniors are fleeing for their miserable lives. Freya's jaw literally drops. This completely shatters all logic. There are 0 magical beasts roaming that specific mountain peak capable of terrorizing battle-hardened veterans. Desperation leaks into her voice as she demands the identity of this unseen catastrophe. Stepping out of the shadows, the traumatized spy drops a single, chilling name. The predator hunting the seniors is Zeke. Freya's mind short-circuits as the scout paints a horrifying picture of a one-man massacre. He explains that the arrogant veterans tried jumping the freshmen at first, but now, it is a completely one-sided slaughter. The reports confirm that our overpowered main character is happily harvesting the elites, tracking their scent like a literal demon. The faculty trembles, declaring this an unprecedented anomaly in the Academy's entire bloody history. A senior instructor chimes in, sweating profusely, claiming Zeke's royal bloodline as the headmaster's son has mutated him, far past the realm of a mere prodigy, directly into the territory of an absolute monster. Leaning back, Freya nervously chuckles, realizing her bizarre gut feeling about that kid was terrifyingly accurate. Moving solo and taking his sweet time? Yeah, that was no accident. From the jump, our boy Zeke never once viewed himself as the prey. To him, he was the apex predator on a hunt. Meanwhile, Freya's highly anticipated package finally touches down, and she immediately orders the crew to drop the cargo right on the spot. The other instructors absolutely lose their minds. They realize what she's planning and panic, screaming that a bunch of rookies will get absolutely slaughtered by a 3-star beast. But Freya just flashes a chillingly calm smile. She brushes off their panic, revealing that this beast comes with some very specific custom settings. Confused, the staff demands answers. She casually drops the bomb that this monster's aggro is hardwired to only track down fighters at the 2-star level or higher. Translation: the regular trainees are totally safe. This mechanical nightmare is only going hunting for the heavy hitters, namely Zeke and Laika. Still sweating bullets, the instructors question why she would pull such a reckless stunt in the middle of a test. Her answer? Direct orders from the absolute top, the head of the family himself. But honestly, Freya is secretly hyped to see if Zeke is truly built different. She issues the cold command to unleash the beast at the crack of dawn. Fast forward to morning, and the trainees suddenly feel a suffocating weight crush the atmosphere. Every single kid goes on high alert, realizing the vibe is completely off. A few naive rookies try to convince themselves it's just a bulky, wild animal, maybe a massive anger boar. Lika, however, remains completely unfazed. That is, until her instincts scream at her, and she catches a massive, splintering tree crashing directly toward their squad. Moving like lightning, she forcefully tackles her teammates out of the kill zone. As the dust settles and they scramble to their feet, a colossal golem is already towering over them. Its shadow alone sends absolute terror shivering down their spines. Miles away, our main character Zeke also picks up on that exact same murderous aura. Literally seconds after he was complaining about the lack of worthy opponents, his internal radar spikes with a massive threat alert. He instantly connects the dots, realizing the higher-ups dropped this boss-level threat to test the waters. Is he terrified? Not even close. Though he does spare a quick thought for the regular cadets, knowing they are going to get totally steamrolled by whatever monstrosity is lurking in the woods. He briefly questions why the proctors did not clear out a threat of this magnitude before the exam kicked off. Then it clicks. This was not a mistake, it was an intentional drop. The second that realization hits him, a dangerously wicked grin spreads across Zeke's face. To him, the boring tutorial is finally over, and the real game is about to begin. He instantly leaps to his feet, blood pumping with pure adrenaline, and he practically sprints straight toward the 3-star death trap, treating it like his own personal playground. Meanwhile, Lika's squad is fighting for their absolute lives. Her teammates' weapons are bouncing off the stone beast like cheap plastic. Realizing it is now or never, Lika channels her mana and unleashes her Thunder Flash art, violently slashing the Titan. Miraculously, her blade leaves a jagged hairline fracture on its armor. Her combat IQ immediately kicks in, realizing this thing is totally immune to anything but pure aura-infused strikes, which means unless you have broken into the 2-star realm, you are utterly useless here. Panicking, the rest of the squad begs her for a game plan. Coldly, she orders them to fall back and run for their lives while she holds the aggro. Her squad is absolutely stunned by the suicidal command. They frantically refuse, swearing they will not abandon their leader to die. But Laika hits them with the harsh truth. Staying here only makes them dead weight. She points her blade at the fractured stone, bluntly reminding them that she is the only one who even scratched the beast, while their attacks did absolutely zero damage. Swallowing their pride, they admit their damage output is garbage, but they flat out refuse to retreat, insisting they can still play defense. They promise to create the perfect openings for her critical strikes. In a crazy display of loyalty, every single cadet plants their feet, refusing to leave Laika's side. Looking death right in the eye, they swear to be her shield. They hype her up, entirely convinced that if they perfectly coordinate their utility skills, they can actually pull off an upset. With her as the main damage dealer, and them providing hardcore backup, they have a real shot. Moved by their resolve, Lika finally accepts their help and explosively dashes straight at the Colossus. The squad's heavy tank flawlessly blocks incoming debris, carving out a perfectly clear path for Laika to slip right into the boss's blind spot. Anchored directly behind the Titan, she channels everything she has, igniting her supreme sword art, Heavenly Thunder, and brings a devastating, high-voltage execution strike down on the golem's core. The impact triggers a blinding, earth-shattering explosion. The ultimate move instantly empties Laika's mana pool, but as the smoke clears, the stone giant appears to be completely dead. The crew frantically rushes over to catch their exhausted leader, as she gasps out that the finisher completely drained her energy reserves. Breathing heavily, she checks if Raymond caught any friendly fire, but he flashes a thumbs up, confirming he is still in one piece. But right as she opens her mouth to call for a tactical retreat, a massive rocky shadow eclipses her. Before anyone can even blink, the monstrous golem violently snatches Laika off the ground. Pure horror rips through the squad as they scream her name. Hanging helplessly in its grip, a sickening realization hits Laika. She committed the ultimate rookie mistake by dropping her guard. She was foolishly convinced that one ultimate skill was enough to secure the kill. Her teammates are completely paralyzed by shock, unable to comprehend how this absolute unit is still functioning, especially after eating a point-blank, heavily buffed Thunderstrike. In an act of pure desperation, Langus repeatedly stabs the Titan's rocky ankles with his spear, praying it will drop her. Out of absolutely nowhere, an entire freaking tree rockets through the air like a missile, smashing right into the monster's face and forcing it to release its prey. The squad instantly dives in, pulling Laika back to a safe distance while frantically looking around to see who threw a literal forest at the boss. Then, a chillingly familiar voice echoes through the chaos. It is our boy Zeke. Stepping out from the dense woods with an absolutely manic grin plastered on his face, he stares at the towering golem like a kid in a candy store. Why? Because this is his very first time crossing paths with a stone monstrosity like this. Flashing back just a few moments, Zeke had spotted the blinding flash of Lika's thunder art painting the sky. That glowing beacon instantly told him someone else had beaten him to the main event. Honestly, Zeke felt a massive wave of disappointment in his own current stats, because if he possessed his past life, prime-level speed, he would have crossed that map in a blink. Still, observing Laika's team of promising rookies, Zeke cannot help but wonder what happens next. Let's see just how long these guys can survive a 3-star beast. Meanwhile, Zeke decides it is the perfect time to test drive a shiny new trick. He dashes toward a massive tree, uprooting it with terrifying raw strength before launching it straight at the golem like a giant spear. While the colossal trunk rips through the air, Zeke smirks. He is honestly thrilled he picked up the dragon nurturing arts. It was just a basic combat manual tossed to the rookies right before the trial began. Similar to the Dragon Slayer technique, it is not a strict fighting style. Instead, it teaches the fundamental flow of true, unadulterated power. For an overpowered guy like Zeke, this technique is an absolute match made in heaven. But his inner monologue gets cut short. The other kids are about to become monster food, and he needs to crash the party. Touching down on the battlefield, he casually asks the squad how they are holding up. They frantically scream at him to watch his back. Zeke, completely unbothered, cares far more about the creature's weird name than its lethal threat level. He points out how bizarre this golem feels. It radiates a massive aura, yet possesses zero actual life force. Out of nowhere, the rock giant throws a devastating hook. Boom! Zeke effortlessly catches the massive fist with a single hand. His battle instincts kick in, realizing normal attacks will not scratch this thing without an aura-infused strike. But doing things the standard way? That is way too vanilla for him. Catching his drift, Laika cracks a smile. Zeke is still the exact same reckless lunatic as always. Langus's jaw drops. Did this guy seriously just call a deadly boss monster boring? Enraged, the beast unleashes another brutal assault. Zeke instantly reads its movement. For a giant chunk of rock, it is crazy fast. Yet, he casually catches both of its massive hands, stopping it dead in its tracks. He barks an order at the crew to fall back. The real carnage is about to begin. Knowing better than to argue, they retreat. They scramble to a safe distance, giving the main character a clear stage to unleash hell. With the collateral damage out of the way, Zeke violently launches the colossal golem across the battlefield. He admits the rocky armor is tough, but he is dying to test its internal durability. Launching himself like a bullet, he closes the gap. Bam! He delivers a soul-crushing punch straight to its face, using the Dragon Destroyer arts. Shifting smoothly into the second form, he pumps a volatile surge of pure energy deep into the creature's core. The explosive burst shatters the monster from the inside out. Standing over the rubble, Zeke finally admits he actually had a decent warm-up. Fast forward, and the grueling 1-month survival trial wraps up smoothly. After the 3-star golem incident, the rest was basically a cakewalk. Pushed to their absolute limits on that hellish mountain, almost all the 7-year-olds successfully awakened their 1-star potential. But the moment the dust settles, Zeke gets a direct summons from the head of the household. Striding down the lavish halls toward the Duke's den, Zeke casually asks Freya what the old man wants. Freya immediately panics, warning him to use the proper title of Lord Head. She nervously explains that his absolute menace behavior during the exam triggered this VIP meeting. Zeke plays dumb, asking what exactly he did wrong. She drops the reality check. The older students were supposed to be the predators hunting for crystal orbs, but Zeke completely flipped the script. He became the hunter, aggressively farming the upperclassmen for sport. Freya loses her mind, shouting that this is literally unprecedented in family history. Thanks to his rampage, the elite seniors secured exactly 0 orbs. Now, those humiliated veterans all have to repeat the entire exam. Zeke just shrugs, pointing out he never broke a single rule. Plus, he did not even steal their stuff. Freya's stress levels hit the roof. She screams that no rational human expects a rookie to absolutely demolish the senior class. But honestly, she is too exhausted to argue with his crazy logic. Her only genuine fear right now is his complete lack of a verbal filter once they step before Balza. Seconds later, they face the imposing, blood-red doors of the Duke's office. Freya practically begs him to show some basic respect inside. Zeke tilts his head, genuinely confused why he needs to act polite. Freya looks like her soul is leaving her body as she snaps at him. She yells that his disrespectful mouth will get him executed, kid or not. Swallowing her anxiety, she finally knocks on the heavy wood. Announcing her presence, she tries to keep her voice perfectly steady and professional. From the shadows within, Balza's heavy tone grants them permission to enter. She pushes the heavy doors open, keeping Zeke close. Cutting straight to the chase, Balza demands to know why a rookie battered his senior students. In classic OP fashion, Zeke completely ignores the question and throws one right back. He casually asks if attacking them was somehow off limits. Balza's eyes widen at the sheer audacity. Zeke coldly lists out the exam parameters. Survive 30 days on the deadly Poison Dragon Mountain. The only goal was keeping a crystal orb. No other rules existed. So, he simply spent his month of survival dominating the trial however he pleased. He stares the Duke down, stating that if there were hidden boundaries, the old man should have spoken up. But his instructions were totally silent on the matter. Freya is absolutely mortified, watching Zeke treat the Duke like a street punk. She opens her mouth to scold him, but suddenly, a suffocating, blood-curdling aura explodes from Balza. The sheer spiritual pressure crushes Freya, forcing her violently to her knees in pure terror. Yet, Zeke just stands there, totally unbothered by the heavy gravity. Without breaking eye contact, he sighs and tells Balza to stop flexing his spiritual pressure to intimidate people, calling it incredibly annoying. Pure shock paralyzes the Duke's hardened face. With zero hesitation, Zeke asks if he dragged him all the way here, just to ask such mind-numbingly boring questions. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife as Balza locks eyes with Zeke, demanding to know the secret behind his ridiculous strength. But our boy Zeke, he just tilts his head, playing completely clueless. The patriarch narrows his gaze, bringing up the insane rumors of Zeke totally humiliating a senior student and utterly obliterating a massive golem on top of that. Despite the heavy aura crushing the room, Zeke stands there cool as a cucumber. Balza scowls, practically demanding how a mere illegitimate son managed to awaken such terrifying, monstrous power. Without even blinking, our main character hits him with the ultimate flex. He casually shrugs and declares, "There is no grand secret. He is simply built different." Balza is absolutely stunned by the sheer audacity radiating from this kid, scoffing that the rumors about Zeke's arrogant attitude were entirely spot on. But surprisingly, the patriarch decides to overlook the disrespect, offering a legendary bounty for crushing that golem. He drops an absolute bombshell, giving Zeke access to the legendary dragon treasury, or, as an alternative, an exclusive pass to the highly restricted second floor of the Dragon Hall. Hearing this, Freya practically loses her mind, completely shocked that this troublemaker is getting rewarded at all. And honestly, who can blame her? The dragon treasury isn't just a closet. It is a massive vault overflowing with mythical loot, hoarded by the family heads for over 1,000 years since the very first Gilfus. Meanwhile, the Dragon Hall is the ultimate library of ancient secrets, heavily guarded and packed with lost combat arts and straight-up forbidden magic. If he picks the treasury, he could walk away with mind-bending artifacts, mythical blades of past lords, game-breaking elixirs, and priceless treasures from forgotten eras. Both of these vaults are the ultimate pride of the bloodline, locked down so tight that only the absolute elite of the elite ever get a glimpse inside. Stepping foot onto that second floor usually requires pulling off some monumental, world-saving feat. Freya's jaw is practically on the floor, completely mind-blown that Balza is actually handing out VIP access after Zeke just disrespected him to his face. Breaking the silence, our boy finally opens his mouth and boldly asks why he cannot just take both prizes. Balza immediately shuts that greed down, flat out telling the kid to get out of his sight. Zeke looks low-key offended, annoyed that he is being kicked out when he was just getting started. Panicking, Freya snatches him by the collar and physically drags him toward the door, frantically whispering that getting anything directly from the patriarch is an absolute, once-in-a-lifetime honor. Even while being dragged away, Zeke locks eyes with his father and drops one final, chilling warning. He tells the patriarch that suppressing his human emotions to act like a cold-blooded ruler will forever cap his true strength. Freya practically has a heart attack, screaming at him to shut his mouth before nervously bowing and thanking Balza for his mercy. The second the heavy doors slam shut, Freya totally unleashes her fury, screaming at our main character and demanding to know why he has a death wish. She desperately reminds him that she gave him strict instructions on how to survive a meeting with the terrifying patriarch. But Zeke just smirks, casually mentioning that he actually was holding back his true thoughts. Freya is losing her mind, trying to understand how this kid can show basic respect to his teachers, yet treat the most dangerous man in the family like a random NPC. Zeke effortlessly fires back that the guy is just his dad, leaving Freya to realize this boy is an absolute anomaly. Shaken to her core, she stares intensely at him, demanding to know what kind of monster he truly is. Unfazed, Zeke hits her with the exact same iconic line, confirming that he is simply him. A cold sweat breaks out on Freya's neck. Every kid in the family drinks ancient dragon blood, but Balza's veins run with the terrifying lineage of a supreme ancient beast, the Dragon King. That suffocating aura makes it biologically impossible for anyone to defy him. Yet somehow, Zeke just stood there, completely unaffected by the pressure, treating the terrifying gravity of the room like a light breeze. Spotting her existential crisis, Zeke raises an eyebrow and asks if something is wrong. Swallowing hard, she shakes her head, but internally, she is already planning to dig deep into the archives and completely investigate this kid's shady birth records. Changing the subject, she asks our boy which game-changing reward he is going to claim. Will it be the forbidden knowledge of the second floor, or a mythical artifact from the treasure vault? Without missing a beat, Zeke bluntly states he still wants both. Freya instantly shoots down that pipe dream, so Zeke sighs and officially locks in his choice, selecting the VIP pass to the Dragon Hall's second floor. Since he is secretly a reincarnated master, he desperately needs to update his database. Super curious about how medicine and magical tools have evolved over the last 1,000 years. While he is plotting his next power-up, Lenga suddenly bounds over, absolutely vibrating with hype about getting access to the legendary archives. Zeke turns around, genuinely wondering if reading books is really that thrilling. Lengus completely geeks out, confirming that it absolutely is. He hypes up the dragon-slaying combat arts and the insane dragon-nurturing spear techniques he picked up earlier. For a martial arts fanatic like him, this is the ultimate golden ticket to unlock game-breaking skills and transcend his limits. The dude literally cannot stop yapping about how cracked these exam rewards are. Just then, the fierce Leica steps onto the scene, fiercely declaring her master plan to speed-read every manual in sight before the timer runs out. Zeke blinks in surprise, completely unaware that they were on the clock. Leica explains the harsh reality that first-floor rookies have a strict countdown hanging over their heads. To make things tougher, they are only allowed to walk out with a single manual. But while inside, it is an absolute free-for-all buffet of combat knowledge, which means wasting even a single second is a rookie mistake. Leica then shifts her sharp gaze to Zeke, mentioning the wild rumors she just heard. She knows he scored the ultimate VIP pass to the second floor, admitting she is pretty shocked by his choice. She totally pegged our boy as the type to snatch a ridiculously overpowered weapon from the mythical treasury. Zeke chuckles, confessing that a shiny new sword was tempting, but right now, he firmly believes that upgrading his brain is the ultimate power move. Leica nods in deep respect, confirming that the forbidden scrolls on the second floor are straight-up legendary compared to the basic stuff, especially those lost martial arts manuals. But true to her confident nature, she proudly smirks, fully convinced that not even ancient scrolls can rival her devastating thunderclap. Great sword techniques. Fast forward, the squad finally arrives at the towering gates of the archive, where a strict instructor drops the absolute rule. They have exactly 5 hours inside. The guard fiercely warns them that absolute silence is the law of the library. With the clock ticking, Leica rallies the crew, urging them to hunt down their one faded manual before time is up. After that, it is free reading time. Longus declares his game plan. He is dedicating the next 3 hours to hunting down the absolute perfect martial arts manual. But the moment they step foot into the Grand Hall, reality hits them. Tracking down a single book in this massive place, it is going to be a total nightmare. The crew is absolutely starstruck by the breathtaking architecture. Even our boy Zeke has to hand it to them. This sacred library is way beyond anything he ever pictured. A confident smirk creeps onto his face. It is time to see if this era has any hidden secrets left that could actually manage to surprise a former legend like him. He decides to kick back, soak in the vibe, and absorb every ounce of lore this place has to offer. Cut to a few moments later, and Zeke is practically short-circuiting. His brain is being bombarded with so much earth-shattering history, he can barely process that 1,000 years of forgotten lore is staring him right in the face. Sensory overload hits him like a truck, forcing him to flat-out collapse on the floor, just to process the sheer madness of it all. Here is the massive lore drop. Around 9 centuries ago, the very fabric of reality tore open, creating a massive dimensional rift. And what was waiting on the other side? A brutal, nightmarish dimension known only as Conseil, the realm of absolute chaos. This hellscape was crawling with terrifying monsters called Chaos. To survive the slaughter, the natives awakened a unique, pulsating primal energy within their very blood. In the ultimate crossover event, the legendary Eld Dragon family joined forces with these otherworldly warriors to push back the monstrous horde. Forged in the fires of endless warfare, 4 god-tier fighters from the Chaos Realm officially married into the Eld Dragon bloodline. We are talking about absolute titans here: Toprana, Fafnir, Levias, and Bahamut. These 4 absolute units became the founding ancestors of the 4 great Eld Dragon families ruling the modern world today. Suddenly, everything clicks for Zeke. The bizarre, dark aura radiating from the anger boar and the intense thunder energy sparking off Laika, he finally figures out why their powers felt so alien. They literally originated from a completely different dimension. But the real plot twist? A single, dusty text mentions an ancient force called magic, and Zeke is officially obsessed. If this is some overpowered technique from another realm, why is there 0 instruction manuals on how to actually cast it? A game-breaking power like that should be sitting in the VIP section of the archives. While our boy is literally screaming his lungs out over this missing lore, a disembodied voice suddenly echoes through the aisles, strictly ordering him to shut his mouth and respect library etiquette. Zeke freezes. He scans the room, but there is not a single soul in sight. His heart races as a wild thought hits him. Could this invisible presence actually be magic? But wait. He reaches out with his senses and feels absolutely 0 magical fluctuations, only standard primal energy. Frustration boils over, and he starts shouting again. Right on cue, heavy tomes start floating off the shelves like a poltergeist scene. The phantom voice issues a final warning to pipe down, but Zeke is having none of it. He stubbornly barks back that there is no chance he is staying quiet when facing something this ridiculously cool. He aggressively snatches a floating book right out of the air, daring whoever is pulling the strings to step out of the shadows and give him the answers he is craving. But in the blink of an eye, glowing, invisible threads completely bind his body. Before he can even struggle, he gets violently yeeted straight out of the front doors for violating closing time. He sticks the superhero landing, but his mind is completely blown by the sheer disrespect of that invisible force. He glares at the towering library gates, screaming like a maniac for them to give him a proper magic showcase. Langus sprints over in a panic, demanding to know what went wrong, while Laika questions, what kind of dumb stunt got his butt literally kicked out of the sacred archives? Zeke scratches his head, sheepishly admitting he lost his cool. Deflecting the embarrassment, he asks the squad if they managed to score any legendary loot. Langus beams with pride, eagerly revealing the premium martial arts manual he bagged, the legendary Cloud Water Spear technique. He boasts that it even includes a top-tier movement art within its pages. Celine chimes in, looking incredibly smug. She secured her own agility training along with the stunning Wind Blossom sword technique. Meanwhile, the ever-stoic Raymond casually drops that he was busy mastering the defensive arts of the Eld Dragon-style Guardian sword inside the hall. Not stopping there, his chosen checkout book is its perfect companion, the impenetrable Guardian Shield technique. Zeke's jaw hits the floor. Are they serious right now? Every single one of these supposedly legendary manuals are just random moves he invented for pure fun in his past life. Sweating bullets, he turns to Laika to check her haul. Laika proudly displays her prize, the Heavy Wave Great Sword technique. But wait, she also snagged the revised edition, an upgraded version modified by the legendary 15th Lord of the Household. Zeke is genuinely shook. He discovers that this 15th Lord even engineered an ultimate dragon-slaying combat art designed specifically to counter a dragon's breath. A massive realization washes over our main character. This entire archive is basically a shrine to his past life, boredom projects. But seeing these evolved, heavily refined variations, sitting right next to his original drafts, it completely sparks his competitive spirit. Was this mysterious 15th Lord the genius who upgraded his legacy? Suddenly, Zeke's entire perspective shifts. He thought Academy life would be an absolute snooze fest, but with rival legacies, multidimensional magic, and floating books, he has never been more wrong. Flash forward. 5 entire years vanish in the blink of an eye, and our rookie squad has completely glowed up into fierce, battle-ready teenagers. Meanwhile, the tension spikes in Lord Balza's office. Ain, the elite commander of the Black Dragon Corps, crashes in with an urgent mission report. A brand new dimensional rift has just violently ripped open. Intel suggests an 80% probability that the ultra-rare resource known as magic water is hidden deep inside. Balza's eyes widen. This spatial tier spawned in the absolute perfect geographical location for a massive reservoir of this liquid gold to form. And this is not just any potion. Chugging this legendary water permanently forcefully awakens a person's inner mage. By drinking it, ordinary warriors completely mutate their physical constitution, unlocking the god-tier ability to freely manipulate true source mana. The awakening of a brand new force completely flipped the world upside down. Magic power didn't just change the game, it absolutely shattered the rules with revolutionary new techniques. But with great power comes absolute chaos. Brutal, blood-soaked turf wars instantly exploded across the continent, all for the control of one precious resource. They called them the Magic Springs. Humanity had officially stepped into a relentless new era of sorcery. In this brutal age, a family's military flex was directly tied to their headcount of mages. But here is the massive catch. House Eldragon literally had 0 magic springs inside their borders. If your house lacked a spring, you were basically starving for mana. Their only survival strategy? Diving straight into hell to conquer incredibly deadly special rifts just to secure that magic water. Right now, House Eldragon's mage roster was looking dangerously thin, with Balza being one of the rare exceptions. Honestly, every single magic user they had was a hardened survivor who forged their powers in the absolute nightmare of the rifts. But even with these elite veterans, the rival houses were completely drowning them in sheer numbers thanks to their endless magic springs. This made conquering new rifts a literal do-or-die mission for Eldragon's survival. Back at the base, Ein drops a heavy truth bomb on Balza, confirming his worst suspicions. The brand new rift spawned right in the middle of the abundant dragon forest, and the location was an absolute nightmare. To make matters worse, just a little while ago, a bloody little turf war had already popped off right along that exact border. Here is the massive problem. While the majority of this massive forest belonged to Eldragon, a solid chunk of it violently crashed right into enemy territory. The absolute menaces claiming that border zone, the infamous Cerberus House, who smugly renamed their half the Abundant Hound Forest. Ein points out that while the rift's core sits securely on their side, the insane scale of its energy drop was literally bleeding a massive distortion zone right into Cerberus turf. And knowing those absolute wildcards, Ein knew they would definitely come crashing the party. Balza nodded grimly. There was 0 chance Cerberus would just ignore an energy spike that massive. Balza locks in, ordering Ein to brace the house for a full-blown border war if push came to shove. But honestly, he wanted to blitz the rift and claim the prize before those hounds even caught the scent. Balza immediately orders a massive selection trial across every single dragon nest. Meanwhile, cut to the training grounds, where Zeke was currently throwing down against Raymond, Langus, and Celine in a crazy 3-on-1, with Leica chilling on the sidelines. The trio rushed him simultaneously with killer intent, but Zeke effortlessly read their movements like an open book. Without breaking a sweat, he started casually exposing their massive flaws. He completely roasted Langus for keeping his body way too stiff, completely nerfing the raw power of his spear thrusts. Next, he called out Celine for obsessing over god-tier speed and hit counts. Her attacks were flashy as hell, but lacked the heavy impact needed to actually finish the job. He ordered her to find that perfect balance. Finally, he gave Raymond a slight nod for holding his ground, but totally called him out for playing it way too safe, telling him to drop the shield and actually go for the kill. After dropping that hardcore combat wisdom, he casually waved them forward for round 2. This wasn't a one-off thing either. Zeke ran these brutal gauntlets daily, and Leica was basically immune to the total madness of it all. Spotting her face, Zeke paused to ask what exactly she found so crazy. Leica flat out told him that tanking a 3-way combo without even activating his true source power was absolute, unhinged behavior. Zeke just grinned like a maniac, shouting that his totally insane methods were exactly why the squad was leveling up so fast purely on base stats alone. Deadpan as always, Leica sarcastically asked if he could maybe pause the literal brawl while they were trying to have a conversation. But hilariously enough, Langus and the crew were completely addicted to the punishing grind Zeke put them through. Leica sighed, warning the trio to stop treating Zeke like a normal human. Even the upperclassmen had officially dubbed him the untouchable monster prodigy of the East Wing. Completely ignoring her dramatic warning, Zeke just flashed a cocky smile and challenged her to step into the ring. Leica smirked, admitting she was totally down to fight, but she had to drop some massive intel on him first. She casually revealed that the absolute top dogs from the rival dragon nests were about to crash their turf. Langus practically choked on his own breath out of pure shock, though Raymond stayed icy, having already predicted this crossover event. Celine's eyes widened as she asked if this was all setting up the next brutal exam. Leica shrugged, admitting the exact details were heavily classified. Frowning, Zeke demanded to know how she even managed to pull this top-secret leak. With a knowing look, Leica explained that reading the room and tracking the instructor's sketchy movements gave it all away. Zeke instantly realized he had 0 situational awareness outside of combat. Leica absolutely roasted him on the spot, telling him that kind of meathead energy was garbage behavior for someone supposed to be the future head of the house. Her tone turned dead serious as she warned him to watch his back. Word on the street was the West Wing had their own absolute beast being hyped up as a prime leader candidate. Did that scare Zeke? Not even a little bit. His blood literally boiled with excitement to see what this mysterious rival was packing. Fast forward a few days, the entire academy was hauled into a massive assembly, completely erasing grade boundaries. Leica instantly connected the dots. The prophecy was fulfilling itself. Moments later, the intimidating instructor Freya stomped up to the podium with her squad. barking an order that instantly silenced the entire room. She dropped a massive bomb, declaring that starting right now, for the next 3 days straight, they were plunging into an all-out bloodbath against the fiercest talents of the rival dragon nests. Pure panic and absolute shock rippled through the crowd. This kind of insane crossover clash was strictly reserved for the final graduation exams, yet here they were. Freya coldly stated that while the exact reasons were strictly classified, the ultimate prize was very real. Whoever clawed their way to the top and survived the tournament would unlock a highly classified, elite mission. The absolute second those words hit Zeke's ears, his eyes sparked with an insane, battle-hungry fire. The rules were absolutely ruthless. Each of the 4 major halls, East, West, South, and North, would deploy their top 7 absolute monsters in a brutal King of the Hill survival match. With an icy glare, Freya ordered them to choose their champions. The real war was about to begin. Who gets to step into the arena for the upcoming tournament? The senior elites assemble to decide, led by the arrogant Rick, who immediately declares that only his upperclassmen crew gets a ticket to the main event. He expects absolute submission from the crowd, but Laika instantly shatters his ego. Stepping forward, she demands that every single student deserves a fair shot at qualifying. Rick simply scoffs at her, spitting out that the weak have no place in a battle of pure strength, but before he can spit out another insult, an explosive aura erupts from Laika's body. The smug grins completely vanish from the seniors' faces, as they sense the crushing weight of a true 3-star presence, completely shattering their belief that she was just a measly 2-star. Staring them down, Laika coldly announces that she is more than ready to speak his language of violence. She dares Rick to step up, asking if any of his so-called elite buddies actually have the guts to face her, demanding that the freshmen get their rightful spot on the roster too. Sneering, Rick fires back that she is a rare exception, and the rest of the lower years are pure garbage. That is when Zeke finally interrupts, casually mentioning that Rick barks way too loud for a small dog. Rick completely loses his mind, screaming at the freshman to repeat himself. Unfazed, Zeke doubles down on his mockery, questioning if these pathetic upperclassmen could even survive a real clash against the rookies. With a deadly smirk, Zeke proposes a brutal battle royale, where they just slaughter each other until only 7 bodies remain standing. Laika immediately shoots down the bloodbath idea, suggesting a more civilized preliminary tournament for anyone brave enough to volunteer. She asks for a show of hands, and while Rick reluctantly agrees to the terms, he visibly rolls his eyes at the absolute waste of time. Turning her attention back, Laika asks Zeke if he plans on entering the arena. Without missing a beat, Zeke confirms his entry, but he is not going alone, instantly tossing Langus, Raymond, and Celine right into the fiery pit with him. The trio completely freezes in pure horror, absolutely terrified of fighting the Academy veterans. But Zeke just shrugs, telling them to drop the fear, because surviving his hellish training sessions means they are more than ready to flex their new powers. Hearing the absolute zero hesitation in his voice, the 3 of them realize protesting is useless, sealing their fate in the upcoming clash. With Zeke's main crew locked in, Laika scans the crowd for any other brave souls. The rest of the freshmen shrink back into the shadows, shivering at the very thought of getting crushed by the untouchable seniors. Zeke tries to hype them up, explaining that taking a beating from veterans is the fastest way to level up in real combat. Unsurprisingly, nobody wants to be a punching bag, but Zeke just leans over to Laika, whispering that this is the perfect chance to expose just how pathetic these so-called top-tier students actually are. Meanwhile, the arrogant upperclassmen are busy laughing it off, totally convinced that Laika is the only actual threat on the board, viewing the rest of the squad as pathetic 2-star stepping stones. Glancing back, Zeke catches his own friends, trembling like leaves in a storm. He casually asks why they look like they just saw a ghost. Sweating bullets, Langus stammers out that they are facing off against ruthless, 3-star monsters, but Zeke simply flashes a confident grin, reminding them that surviving his brutal, bone-breaking regime has already turned them into lethal weapons. He praises their hardcore dedication, telling them it is finally time to awaken their inner beasts and trust in their own overwhelming strength. Swallowing their fear, the squad tightens their fists, knowing full well that backing down is no longer an option. Across the arena, Rick roars like a madman, ordering the freshmen to step up and accept their brutal execution. Cut to a few moments later, and the entire arena drops into dead silence. Rick's elite squad is scattered across the floor, absolutely demolished by the very freshmen they mocked. Zeke watches the carnage with a proud smirk, giving his victorious squad a solid nod of approval. He analyzes the battlefield, noting how Langus has evolved into a tactical genius, perfectly parrying fatal strikes and punishing every single blind spot. Celine, on the other hand, looks like a literal tempest, beautifully executing the multi-strike windflower sword style to slice through the enemy ranks. Zeke also heavily praises Raymond's flawless execution, fluidly weaving between unbreakable shield defenses and lethal swordplay. With Leica also showcasing massive power leaps, Zeke knows that this terrifying growth rate will soon make them absolute legends. Meanwhile, Rick is having a total mental breakdown, his eyes practically bugging out as he tries to comprehend how his mighty 3-star allies just got utterly humiliated by 2-star rookies. Stepping forward, Zeke mercilessly roasts the senior, laughing at his pathetic denial even while staring directly at the defeated bodies, under his squad's overwhelming aura. Dropping the playful act, Zeke coldly states that age and aura ranks are nothing but meaningless numbers on a piece of paper. He lectures the shattered senior, declaring that real combat comes down to pure survival instincts, and if you lack the fangs to bite, you get devoured. Clutching his fragile ego, Rick desperately screams that the star system is absolute, barking that raw aura level is the only truth in this world. Zeke just tilts his head, his eyes glowing with killer intent, as he whispers that stars mean nothing when a blade pierces your heart. Completely rejecting this terrifying reality, Rick violently lashes out. He roars about his untouchable status as an elite upperclassman, swearing that he will not be brainwashed by some first-year trash's twisted philosophy. Glaring daggers, Rick snarls that he was actually planning to show some mercy, but now he is going to rip Zeke apart limb from limb. Sighing in pure boredom, Zeke tells the raging senior to shut his mouth, demanding that he finally let his fists do the talking. Reminding Rick that it is just the two of them left standing, Zeke drops into a battle stance, daring the senior to show off his absolute peak martial arts. Pushed past his breaking point, Rick explodes with furious aura, lunging straight for Zeke's throat with a blood-curdling scream. He channels everything into his great strength fist technique. But Zeke? He just casually swats the guy away like a mildly annoying fly. Even with his opponent eating dirt, Zeke completely disrespects him, sarcastically praising his so-called hard work. Meanwhile, over at the West Wing training grounds, the atmosphere is pure chaos. Vanille Fafnir, the legendary Eldritch Dragon, is absolutely decimating the competition. Not a single soul can survive more than a few seconds against his overwhelming aura. As he stands over the defeated trash, his loyal right-hand man, Alan, steps out of the shadows. The final selection roster is officially locked in. One of the chosen elite is a freshman named Retin, but don't let his junior status fool you. This kid is already rocking a solid 3-star rank. Viniel practically glares right through him, smirking as he declares that he only surrounds himself with useful tools. Welcome to the inner circle, kid. Retin is internally screaming with fanboy energy, being acknowledged by the absolute apex predator of their generation. To him, as long as Viniel is leading the charge, the West Wing is utterly invincible. In his eyes, Viniel is already sitting on the family throne. After all, they are about to absolutely carry this upcoming mission. The hype is incredibly real. Retin is ready to lay down his life for the future head of the house, but the celebration is cut short. Alan leans in, his expression turning serious. There is a massive variable they need to discuss. He drops the bomb directly into Viniel's ear. Leica made the cut for the East Wing squad. Viniel aggressively grabs his own hair, his aura spiking with pure irritation. In his mind, that girl exists for one reason, only to be a massive thorn in his side. But Viniel quickly forces a twisted grin. It doesn't matter how gifted Leica is, the West Wing is destined for absolute victory. He is going to crush this mission flawlessly, and prove to every single elder that the throne belongs exclusively to him. Fast forward a bit, the surviving students funnel into the massive arena. Langus is sweating bullets at the sheer size of the roaring crowd. Leica calmly steps up, explaining that the audience is absolutely packed with spectators from every single hall. But she drops a harsh reality check. This is just a fraction of the original numbers. The brutal preliminary exams already weeded out the weak. The absolute failures, brutally labeled as pseudo-dragons just like Langus's dad, didn't even earn the right to stand here. Sensing the mood dropping, Leica immediately hypes him back up. They are the official vanguard of the East Hall, and that is something to wear like a badge of honor. Suddenly, they catch Zeke acting incredibly weird. When they ask what's going on, he casually admits he was just secretly scanning the combat power of every single person in the stadium. Langus practically drops his jaw to the floor. But honestly, at this point, this absolutely broken behavior is just a typical Tuesday for Zeke. Right on cue, two upperclassmen who survived the East Wing cuts, Rick and a female student, sprint over to the group. After experiencing the bloodbath of the preliminaries, their entire perspective on power has completely shifted. Rick looks Zeke dead in the eye, declaring that even though he is a lesser dragon, he completely bows to true strength. Zeke barely blinks as he accepts their loyalty. Zeke does a quick sweep of the room. Every single competitor outside the East Hall is sitting at a 3-star level. Interestingly enough, there isn't a single 4-star in sight, but his gamer senses are tingling. He can feel the massive power spikes all around the room, and he is pumped for a real fight. Out of nowhere, a blonde tornado crashes into the scene. A girl named Sandy absolutely tackles Laika in a massive hug, screaming, "Sister!" Zeke is standing there utterly baffled. Sandy is frantically checking Laika for injuries, demanding to know if any peasants dared to lay a finger on her. Laika awkwardly tries to calm the hurricane down. Meanwhile, her squad is just standing there, silently begging for an introduction to this chaotic newcomer. Sighing, Laika drops the lore. This is her cousin, Sandy Taprana. Yes, the literal daughter of the Taprana family head. The moment that name drops, Langus and the upperclassmen feel their souls leave their bodies. The Taprana bloodline is one of the 4 legendary houses. Sandy shoots a nasty glare at Langus and the crew, asking who these extras are. Lika firmly defends them as her trusted comrades. Sandy rolls her eyes, spitting straight venom, as she mocks Laika for hanging out with absolute, talentless garbage. That's when Zeke finally steps up. His voice is ice cold. He tells the bratty noble that they will see who the real trash is once the actual fighting starts. Sandy physically recoils. Nobody talks to her like that. She demands to know who this arrogant extra is, and Lika drops the final puzzle piece. He is a fellow candidate. The gears in Sandy's head click instantly. Her eyes go wide as she realizes she is staring right at the infamous illegitimate child. She practically scoffs, mind blown that the discarded trash is still breathing. Lika instantly flares up, demanding her cousin show some respect. Sandy is genuinely offended by the scolding. She points right at Zeke, screaming that he is literally the enemy. She doubles down on the disrespect, loudly broadcasting that since Langus and the others aren't even 3 stars, the entire East Hall is an absolute joke. Zeke doesn't even raise his voice. He just looks down at her and warns that her massive ego is going to get her completely destroyed one day. Sandy absolutely loses her mind. She screams that a filthy, illegitimate kid with 0 political backing has absolutely no right to lecture her. She is fuming that he even dared to look her in the eye. Zeke just shrugs, calling it free advice. Sandy is about to go full Karen and start throwing hands. But suddenly, the North Hall representative, Eugene Van Blade, enters the chat. With an overwhelming aura of authority, he tells Sandy to shut it down and stop embarrassing everyone. Sandy clicks her tongue in pure rage, her ultimate tantrum completely ruined by the interruption. Iga steps in, declaring he has to cut the tension right here. The selection match is finally kicking off. Suddenly, a suffocating aura crashes down on the entire arena. Enter the captain of the Gold Dragon Order. Teach Mentric has arrived, the man notoriously feared as the Dread Educator. Mentric wastes 0 time laying down the law. This tournament is a brutal, 4-way hall knockout. First phase, splitting the 4 factions into 2 deadly brackets. The survivors of this bloodbath will clash in the grand finale. Forget team brawls, this is purely one-on-one combat. Each fighter steps into the ring solo. Every faction has to lock in their roster order beforehand. Out of the 7 elite warriors repping each hall, the first squad to crush 4 opponents snatches the crown. Mentric makes it crystal clear, once the games begin, absolutely no roster swaps are allowed. He smirks, warning them to treat their lineup like a game of high-stakes chess. One wrong placement could mean total elimination, then drops the real bombshell. Everyone picked for this tournament gets handed a top-secret mission. Hearing this, a confident smirk spreads across Zeke's face. Mentric reveals that this isn't just some random task. This mission holds absolute weight within the mighty Eldoran bloodline. Whoever manages to conquer this objective will basically cement their legacy. They will earn massive authority within the family ranks. Vanille and Lika instantly connect the dots. This is the golden ticket to becoming the next family head. With the brutal rules established, it is finally time to draw the bloodlines. He commands the alpha of each hall to step up to the podium. Their fate lies in drawing a single stone from the mystery box. First up to the plate is the West Hall. Vanille strides forward, radiating pure confidence as their chosen leader. He snatches his stone and falls back. Just seeing the guy makes Laika tense up visibly. Catching her grim reaction, Zeke questions if she has history with him. Laika drops the intel. That guy is the West Hall's crown jewel. He is the prime candidate for the family throne she warned him about. That immediately piques Zeke's interest. He scans the West Hall, his sharp eyes instantly picking up on the monstrous aura rolling off their fighters. Sure, the other factions are packing some serious heat, but Zeke's instincts scream that the West squad is operating on a completely different level. His gaze then shifts to Retin. Zeke vividly remembers this dude showing off some insanely sharp moves back at the entrance exams. A knowing grin flashes across Zeke's face. He can tell Retin has been grinding like a maniac, hitting the legendary 3-star rank at such a crazy young age. Meanwhile, the peanut gallery is ruthlessly flaming Langus. They are basically calling him a complete scrub, questioning why a weakling is standing with the elites. Raymond shoots him a concerned look, checking if the heavy trash talk is getting to his head. Langus stumbles over his words for a second, but he quickly brushes it off, swearing he is dialed in. Next on the chopping block, the North Hall steps up, closely followed by the South Hall. Finally, it is time for the East Hall to make their move. Lika turns to Zeke, casually naming him as their proxy, because he is straight up their strongest weapon. Zeke hesitates for a split second. He tries playing the boomer card, claiming the spotlight should really belong to the younger generation. Lika is absolutely done with his nonsense. She instantly calls Cap on his old man act, reminding him they are literally the exact same age. Defeated by logic, Zeke sighs and steps up to shoulder the burden. But over in the stands, Sandy is practically tweaking out in pure rage. She fiercely demands answers. Why in the world is a nobody like Zeke walking up there as their absolute leader? Lika does not even blink, stating the cold, hard fact that Zeke is their heavy hitter. Sandy snaps back, thinking this is a sick joke, since Zeke hasn't even broken the 3-star barrier yet. Sandy violently reminds her sister what is at stake. This entire tournament is supposed to be a vicious power struggle between Lika and Vanille for the throne. Lika calmly tells her sister to take a chill pill. She fully trusts in their squad's raw power. With all the Destiny Stones finally claimed, Mentric commands them to inject their ether straight into the rocks. Instantly, the South and West stones erupt in a blinding crimson light, while the East and North shine a brilliant azure blue. Mentric's voice echoes through the arena. The colors have locked in their explosive destinies. The brackets are officially set. It will be a brutal clash between the East and North, while the West goes to war against the South. Reality hits Langus and the crew like a freight train. They are panicking hard, because the North Hall is hiding an absolute monster in their ranks. We are talking about a guy built like a literal mountain. The dude looks more like a veteran warlord than a freaking academy student. Even Lika starts sweating bullets. Her anxiety is peaking because fate paired her against her own sister. Sandy is absolutely out for blood, ready to crush Lika to prove who the real apex predator is. But Lika refuses to bow down. Her eyes lock onto Sandy's, sparking a deeply personal, high-stakes sibling war that is ready to boil over. Amidst the rising tension, Aegis throws a fiery glance at Zeke. He admits he is absolutely hyped to cross blades with him. Zeke meets his fiery gaze with a cool nod. The feeling is completely mutual, and the anticipation is off the charts. As the East and North fighters step into the gauntlet, the remaining factions take to the bleachers, ready to analyze every single drop of bloodshed. Rick's aura is practically vibrating from his latest hardcore training arc. He pounds his chest, swearing to Zeke that he will secure that first bloody victory for the squad. But Lika's sharp eyes catch the subtle tremble in Rick's hands. She silently prays the kid won't crack under this massive pressure. It is time for the opening act. Rick squares up against a ruthless North Hall gladiator. The bell rings, and Rick explosively launches the first strike. From the sidelines, Zeke intensely analyzes the clash. Lika leans in, whispering that this brawl is going to be an absolute meat grinder. Zeke nods in solemn agreement, stating the cold, hard truth. In the brutal world of combat, nothing is ever guaranteed. But then, a god-tier smirk stretches across Zeke's face. He casually declares he is the only exception, because his victory is already written in stone. Lika just stares at Zeke's overflowing confidence, hitting him with a reality check by reminding the guy that absolutely nobody asked for his victory predictions. Dropping the arrogant act, Zeke gets deadly serious. He points out that when it comes to raw combat power, those North Hall fighters boast the exact same specs as Rick. As long as Rick sticks to his usual battle rhythm, victory is practically guaranteed, and Lika totally backs up that assessment. But there is a massive catch. Lika points out the roaring stadium around them, noting that fighting under the crushing weight of thousands of eyes takes the pressure to a whole new level. Zeke acknowledges the stadium jitters, but his signature smirk returns. He reminds her that when it comes to monsters like Aegis and Sandy, they are built entirely different. He tells the squad that those two are already knocking on the door of the 4-star realm, meaning a little crowd noise isn't going to make them blink. Plus, blood runs thick. Since Sandy and Lika are cousins, Zeke bets his life she will unleash the exact same brutal combat style. But reality hits hard and fast. The dust settles on the opening clash, and the North Hall claims a crushing first blood. Panic instantly washes over Merlin. As the East Hall's next warrior up, the suffocating weight of a must-win scenario threatens to break her on the spot. Lika tries desperately to anchor her friend's shaking nerves, but the stadium anxiety wins out, and Merlin tastes a bitter, devastating defeat of her own. Heads hung low in total shame, both Rick and Merlin drag themselves back, practically begging Zeke for forgiveness after dropping the ball. Instead of chewing them out, Zeke simply brushes the losses aside. He calmly explains that they didn't lose to their opponents, but rather, the suffocating arena aura swallowed them whole. If this was a blood-soaked battlefield, with their actual lives on the line, Zeke knows their survival instincts would have painted a completely different picture. But this giant sandbox? It is strictly a proving ground, a safe space to clash blades, test their limits, and level up without ending up in a body bag. Nobody is dying today. Zeke locks eyes with his fallen comrades, promising that this bitter taste of failure will mutate into pure, unfiltered fuel for their future wars. The mission now is simply to keep pushing past their limits. Fired up by their leader's unwavering faith, the two defeated warriors let out a massive, soul-shaking roar of agreement. The pep talk ends, and Zeke shifts his intense gaze right onto Langus. The stakes are set, and this next clash is an absolute, non-negotiable, must-win. Poor Langus is practically vibrating out of his skin. Zeke's heavy expectations aren't helping, especially since waiting in the ring is the exact same towering behemoth that has been fueling his nightmares all day. Bawling his eyes out, Langus literally leaps into Zeke's arms for comfort, but Zeke shuts down the pity party, fiercely reminding the kid how he already survived clashing with savage upperclassmen. Langus aggressively fires back, screaming that absolutely none of those past enemies looked like a literal mountain of muscle trying to end his life. The sheer thought of taking down a terrifying raid boss while thousands of students watch his every move is completely breaking his mind. Realizing he needs to snap his teammate out of this mental spiral, Zeke steps up. He gives Langus a heavy pat on the head, forcing the shaking boy to directly face the giant. Zeke demands to know what weapon that monster is holding. Still trembling, Langus stammers out the obvious, whispering that it is just a sword. That is the golden ticket. Zeke orders him to violently erase everything else from his mind. No roaring crowd, no terrifying giant, just a basic opponent wielding a piece of sharpened steel. He breaks it down to pure, primal instincts. If the enemy unleashes a deadly thrust, it is his only job to parry that strike into nothingness. If the blade arcs upward, evade like a ghost. If the weapon crashes down, shatter the distance and pierce the opening. The ultimate lesson? Forget the monster, just answer the blade. Just like he has done a million times in training. That single word echoes through Langus's chaotic mind, acting as a mental switch that completely paralyzes his fear. A wave of relief washes over Zeke as he watches his teammates' eyes turn dead serious. The kid possesses terrifying hyperfocus. He just needed a master to point his weapon in the right direction. Zeke knows the terrifying truth. The second, Langus learns to trigger this predatory zone all by himself, his true potential will utterly shatter the heavens. Anticipation burns in Zeke's chest as he wonders just how massive this boy's impending level up will be. With newfound resolve, Langus finally marches into the deathmatch. Standing before the colossal titan, the spearman looks like absolute prey. The toxic crowd instantly erupts into mockery, betting all their money on his total annihilation. But the haters are screaming at a brick wall. Langus has fully entered the zone, emitting a quiet aura that screams pure, unadulterated danger. The starting signal shatters the tension. The behemoth explodes forward instantly, trying to impale the smaller boy with a devastating, lightning-fast thrust. Processing the trajectory in a fraction of a second, Langus sidesteps like flowing water. But the enraged titan just roars like a beast, vowing to crush his slippery prey. A storm of catastrophic, bone-crushing slashes rain down on the arena floor. Yet somehow, the spearman dances through the metallic hurricane without taking a single scratch. Panic grips Celine from the stands as she spots the fatal flaw. The juggernaut is systematically eating up the battleground, violently crushing Langus's optimal spear range. Sweating bullets, Raymond begs Zeke for some kind of reassurance, but their leader just flashes a knowing grin, telling them to peer directly into the spearman's unwavering gaze. There is zero panic in those eyes, only cold, calculated execution. Right on cue, the massive colossus launches himself through the air for the ultimate killing blow. But he just triggered the trap. Langus finally detonates his Cloudwater spear technique, spinning his weapon into a torrential blur that effortlessly swallows the enemy's momentum. This flawless parry rips open a massive, fatal blind spot. In a flash of silver, Langus buries a counterstrike deep into the Titan's chest, blasting the behemoth completely across the arena. The giant crashes into the ground, completely unconscious before the dust even settles. The stunned instructor officially screams out Langus's absolute victory. The East Hall finally puts a desperately needed win on the board. While a shaking Langus praises the heavens for surviving, Zeke's sinister smile stretches practically from ear to ear. Because he knows the agonizing warm-up is completely over, it is officially time to hijack the momentum and crush this entire tournament. Riding that massive adrenaline spike, the East Hall unleashes pure chaos, completely steamrolling their way through the next 3 brutal bloodbaths. Finally, the legendary 6th match arrives. It is the ultimate family feud, Sandy versus Laika. The suffocating pressure inside the arena instantly skyrockets, creating an atmosphere so thick you could practically cut it with a blade. The tension in the arena is absolutely electric. Not only do these two warriors wield the exact same thunder spirit, but they share the same blood. They are literally sisters. Before the blades even clash, Sandy drops her jaw in pure disbelief. She just cannot wrap her head around how a fighter who hasn't even hit the 2-star mark managed to obliterate the North Hall's elite 3-star powerhouses. Laika shoots back a knowing smirk, reminding her older sister that she warned her about their insane power levels. Sandy lets out a heavy sigh, finally confessing that she totally slept on their true potential. But let us be real, Sandy brushes that off like dust on her shoulder. Her real obsession? The mind-boggling fact that her own flesh and blood is not the one running the show, over in the East Hall. She coldly calls Laika out, warning her that playing second fiddle in Zeke's shadow is practically a career-ending move. Laika does not even flinch. She stares right back, acknowledging the massive risk, but her eyes burn with pure ambition. She has zero plans of giving up the throne of the East Hall. Leveling her massive blade straight at her sister's chest, Laika declares absolute victory. Hearing this sheer audacity, Sandy's aura flares up, ready to serve a brutal reality check. Boom! In a literal flash of lightning, Sandy evaporates into thin air. Before you can even blink, her terrifying presence materializes right in Laika's blind spot. The lethal strike is mere inches away, but Laika's survival instincts kick into overdrive, parrying the blow at the very last microsecond. The arena instantly erupts into a deadly symphony of clashing steel. Yet, the power gap is glaringly obvious. Sandy dominates the exchange, violently forcing Laika on the defensive. Watching from the sidelines, Egos does not even bat an eye at this one-sided beatdown. His only question is exactly how long the younger sibling can survive this brutal meat grinder. Meanwhile, Laika is getting absolutely ragdolled across the battlefield. Crimson blood sprays as a savage slash tears through her arm. Gasping for air, Laika desperately launches herself backward just to buy a single second of breathing room. She is drowning in an endless tsunami of Sandy's relentless strikes. Up in the stands, Laika's squad is sweating bullets, completely terrified by the older sister's monstrous combat prowess. Raymond drops a massive lore bomb. Sandy was actually the one who drilled Laika in the arena back in the day, and right now, the veteran is literally running laps around her former student. With every bone-rattling clash, Sandy ruthlessly roasts Laika for clutching onto her worst amateur habit, swinging her sword like a total maniac. The moment panic sets in. Fueled by pure rage, Laika rockets forward, unleashing her signature lightning flash slash. But Sandy effortlessly counters, summoning a devastating wave of scattered thunder that totally eclipses the attack. An agonizing scream rips from Laika's throat as the high-voltage impact forces her crashing down to her knees. Looming over her, Sandy coldly orders her to forfeit, bluntly stating that her current power level is a complete joke. Victory is mathematically impossible for her. Honestly, Sandy is just seething with regret, furious at her own past decisions. She wishes she had pressured their father into dragging Laika to the North Hall. But wait, even while staring straight into the abyss of defeat, Laika stubbornly forces her trembling legs back up. Since her little sister refuses to take a hint, Sandy decides it is time for a harsh, painful lesson. Her blade dances like a deadly phantom, carving multiple bleeding gashes into Laika's armor. Launching herself high into the stadium's airspace, Sandy channels all her energy for a spectacular, execution-style finisher. Down below, Langus and the crew absolutely lose their minds in sheer panic. They frantically scream at Zeke to intervene, but the man is chilling with zero stress. He casually drops that Laika is simply about to break out of her shell and evolve. Kaboom! Sandy's earth-shattering nuke detonates right on top of Laika, obliterating the arena floor and throwing up a massive, blinding smokescreen. Watching the pure destruction unfold, the entire audience collectively agrees that this fight is history. But hold up, a silhouette pierces through the heavy dust it is Laika, completely bruised and battered, yet radiating an unbreakable fighting spirit. Wiping the blood from a defiant smirk, she drops a bombshell. She has finally unlocked the true essence of her Thunder Spirit Greatsword. Sandy is completely paralyzed by shock. Her brain short-circuits trying to process how on earth Laika tanked an ultimate strike that was explicitly designed to be a one-hit knockout. Laika actually nods in agreement, admitting that her past self would be dreaming in the dirt right now. But she flashes a fierce glare, reminding her sister that she has not been slacking off over these past 5 years either. This absolute bloodbath? It is only just getting started. We then flash back to a critical moment right before the tournament kicked off. Laika was deep in conversation with her master, Zeke. Picking up on her incredibly jittery vibes, Zeke raises an eyebrow and asks what is eating her alive. She spills her guts, explaining the massive psychological hurdle. Sandy is not just her flesh and blood. She is the literal architect who built Laika's foundation in the Thunderclap great sword art. To make matters worse, she absorbed all the core fundamentals from the reigning head of the Turpina family, their overpowered uncle. But despite all that royal pedigree, it was always Sandy who patiently guided her through the brutal roadblocks. In her eyes, Sandy is practically her ultimate mentor, her personal final boss. Let us put some insane respect on this rivalry. Laika possesses a 0% win rate against her, and despite grinding her absolute soul out for the last 5 years, it is terrifyingly obvious that Sandy has been leveling up like a monster too. So all that loud trash talk earlier, it was pure copium. Deep down, she is absolutely terrified of catching a brutal loss. Seeing her spiral, Zeke commands her to mentally rewind the tape and relive every single grueling day of her hellish 5-year training arc. Instantly, the color drains from Laika's face, morphing into a look of pure, unadulterated trauma. Zeke actually chuckles, sarcastically asking if his methods were really that traumatic. Getting serious, Zeke diagnoses her biggest fatal flaw. The second her emotions spike during combat, her tactical vision gets heavily nerfed, blinding her to incoming danger. He drops the truth bomb that those entire 5 years of suffering were specifically engineered to forge her mind into impenetrable ice during battle. Still looking like she just bit into a lemon, Laika claps back, reminding her crazy master that he literally fought with intent to kill during their sparring sessions. Zeke just smirks, claiming that his ruthlessness is just part of his irresistible charm. Laika is utterly flabbergasted. Calling pure, bone-shattering agony a charm is absolutely unhinged behavior. But jokes aside, Zeke assures her that the massive gains are permanently hardwired into her brain. By now, she should possess the chilling ability to dissect her opponent's every flinch in the heat of a death match. Laika nods along, but nervously wonders if all that sweat and blood will actually be enough to counter her sister's overwhelming talent. That is the million-dollar question. Zeke just gives her a knowing look, promising that the moment the steel clashes, everything will instantly click into place. He guarantees that her newly awakened kinetic vision will reveal just how monstrously overpowered his training regimen truly was. And of course, Zeke cannot resist the chance to completely flex his own stats. He casually drops that she was forged by the absolute strongest master alive himself, obviously meaning she has zero reasons to sweat this fight. Zeke's grounded words worked like a total charm. The crushing weight of anxiety finally lifted off Laika's shoulders. Since both sisters wield the exact same thunderclap technique, Zeke saw a golden opportunity. He pushed Laika to study Sandy's devastating great sword art up close. Why? Because analyzing that mirror image would spark a massive power leap. Snapping back to reality, Laika flashes a confident smirk, revealing she hasn't missed a single detail. She deliberately tanked those brutal hits head-on. Enduring the pain was the only way to completely decode her sister's ultimate attack. Pure disbelief washes over Sandy's face. When did her little sister become such an absolute monster? Before she can even process the thought, Laika explodes off the ground. The sheer velocity is terrifying. Sandy is completely suffocated by this unbelievable burst of speed. How did her footwork change so drastically? While Sandy desperately tries to read her movements, Laika unleashes a flawless barrage of punishing strikes. I finally get it, Laika declares. I see through your thunderclap arts. Sandy's mind spirals into absolute denial. There is no way she mastered it this fast. To copy a supreme technique mid-battle is insane. Up in the bleachers, Langus and the crew absolutely lose their minds as Laika totally flips the script. A proud smirk creeps across Zeke's face. Clashing with a mirror match is the ultimate cheat code for growth. Curious, Rick turns to him, demanding answers. How did Laika suddenly flip the switch? Zeke drops the bombshell. She literally devoured and mastered her sister's technique right in the heat of combat. This insane feat is the pure payoff from their brutal training sessions. The goal? Keep your mind ice cold while absorbing lethal attacks with your own body. In the past, tunnel vision used to be Laika's biggest fatal flaw. She would lose herself to the adrenaline, blinding her to everything but her own blade. But the girl standing in that arena today is a totally different beast. Now, she possesses the chilling composure to read her enemy like an open book. Even amidst absolute chaos, analyzing a fighting style identical to her own has allowed Laika to ascend to an entirely new realm of power. Back on the blood-stained floor, Sandy's ego refuses to shatter. She stubbornly denies that she is being outclassed. But reality hits her like a freight train. She channels everything into a desperate thunderbolt strike, yet Laika tears right through the blinding flash. Stepping out of the smoke like an absolute boss, Laika reveals the grim truth. Zeke's hellish training sessions pushed her so far past her limits, she practically stared death in the face. Launching herself into the air with explosive force, she screams out her ultimate declaration. It is finally time to show off her true mastery. Lightning practically crackles around her as she unleashes her awakened thunderclap arts, Heavenly Thunder. The devastating impact completely washes away Sandy's defenses. An agonizing scream echoes through the arena. As her consciousness slips into darkness, Sandy finally accepts the bitter truth. Her little sister has truly surpassed her. The referee's call shatters the silence. The East Hall claims a legendary victory. Up in the VIP seats, even Veniel's jaw practically hits the floor. Strutting back to the squad, Laika receives high praise from a grinning Zeke, though he playfully whines about being left out of the spotlight. Laika laughs, incredibly relieved that she could clutch the win for her team. But honestly, Even if she had failed, Zeke was next in line to face the infamous Aegis. Squinting across the arena, Zeke asks for the rundown on this mystery guy. Lika admits they have never formally met, but his reputation practically precedes him. The rumors surrounding him are absolutely insane. Word on the street is that Aegis is the most terrifying prodigy to ever be born into the mighty Van Blade bloodline. Zeke's sharp eyes lock onto the guy. He instantly confirms the hype. Just radiating off his posture, it is painfully obvious that Aegis operates on a completely different tier. Lika cannot help but imagine the utter destruction if those two monsters actually clashed. Suddenly, the head instructor's voice booms over the speakers, confirming the East Hall's overall triumph. But wait, he drops a massive plot twist that stuns the entire crowd. The tournament is not over. Every single scheduled bout will play out to the bitter end. Confusion ripples through the team. What is the point? The rules clearly stated it was game over once 4 opposing fighters bit the dust. Zeke narrows his eyes, trying to sniff out the Academy's hidden agenda. But honestly, he throws logic out the window. A free pass to fight a certified prodigy is all he truly cares about. The atmosphere instantly thickens as the two warriors step onto the fighting stage. Aegis flashes a thrilling smile, hyped beyond belief that this showdown is happening despite the North Hall's crushing defeat. Zeke raises an eyebrow. He didn't expect the Golden Boy to be this ridiculously desperate for a brawl. Aegis tilts his head, revealing exactly what is picking at his brain. Why is Zeke leading the East Hall when a powerhouse like Lika is standing right there? Sure, Zeke might have the noble blood of the patriarch flowing through his veins, but on paper, he is still hopelessly stuck at a measly 2-star rank. Meanwhile, a legit 3-star knight like Lika gladly stepped aside for him? All these juicy contradictions have driven Aegis absolutely crazy with anticipation. He simply has to test Zeke's true strength. A predatory grin spreads across Zeke's face. He loves this guy's energy. He chuckles, admitting that great minds truly do think alike. The feeling is completely mutual. The instant those words leave Zeke's mouth, Aegis's eyes practically glow with battle-crazed excitement. The sound of steel ringing through the air signals the start. Aegis draws his blade with lethal precision. Zeke merely cracks his knuckles, incredibly pumped to finally clash with a master swordsman. Boom! Aegis vanishes from his spot, closing the gap in a fraction of a second. Zeke's eyes widen, genuinely impressed by this god-tier acceleration. Entering the danger zone, Aegis flawlessly triggers his signature technique. In an instant, the entire bloodlust and physical presence of his blade is totally erased. The eerie silence of the strike sends chills down Zeke's spine. It is a terrifyingly brilliant move, but his razor-sharp instincts still kick in just in time to weave past the fatal blow. Aegis was dead certain that strike would draw blood. Shock flashes across his face as Zeke contorts his body at an impossible angle to perfectly evade the invisible slash. Coasting backward, Zeke openly praises the flawless execution. His blood is absolutely boiling now, and he practically dares the prodigy to throw everything he has at him. Never one to back down, Aegis gladly accepts the challenge. His aura explodes violently as he prepares to unleash his next devastating sword art, the Wave Blade. This makes his blade work absolutely impossible to predict. The strikes flow like a crushing tidal wave, and honestly, Zeke completely underestimated the sheer fluidity of this art. But survival instincts kick in fast. Realizing one wrong move means a fatal slice, Zeke explodes off the ground. He launches himself into the air to evade the lethal slash, throwing a smirk and praising the kid's skill, while casually dropping that he has zero plans of getting chopped up today. Not missing a single beat, Aegis seamlessly switches his stance. He activates a lightning attribute art, pushing his agility to insane limits to bridge the gap. Seeing this spark of pure speed, Zeke has to hand it to him. Aegis is an absolute prodigy. His attack patterns are wildly erratic, yet perfectly calculated, and despite moving at the speed of sound, every single swing carries heavy, devastating kinetic energy. It is a masterpiece of a strike. Zeke instantly calculates the brutal truth. There is no way a human body pulls off these maneuvers without pushing physical conditioning to absolute hell and back. Zeke keeps weaving through the deadly barrage. Meanwhile, Aegis is completely mind-blown. He is throwing everything he has, yet he cannot land a single scratch. Panting, Aegis shouts out his respect, begging to know exactly what kind of hellish workout routine Zeke runs. Zeke just chuckles, daring the genius to join his morning routine if he really wants to find out. But right now, that is a chat meant for the post-workout cooldown. The warm-up phase is officially over. Zeke finally shifts from defense to absolute offense. He rockets toward his opponent, throwing a raw, aura-infused heavy hook. Insanely enough, Aegis manages to catch that monstrous fist with the flat of his blade. He actually absorbs the bone-shattering shockwave. His arms tremble, and Aegis openly admits his shock. He yells out that this level of raw, destructive output absolutely defies the logic of a mere 2-star ranker. On the flip side, Zeke is genuinely caught off guard. The fact that this kid adapted to his ancient combat rhythm this fast? Way beyond his expectations. Smirking, Aegis asks if the veteran is finally done scanning his data, and if that is the real reason he threw a counterpunch. Zeke gives a confirming nod. Aegis feels a chill run down his spine, realizing this monster has already decoded his entire martial arts blueprint. But hey, that just means the training weights can finally come off. Aegis propels himself forward, and Zeke braces, fully expecting a repeat of that lightning thrust. But his danger sense screams, he is dead wrong. An afterimage flickers right in front of him. The prodigy has instantly bypassed his guard, aiming a razor-sharp edge directly at his heart. Relying on pure veteran instinct, Zeke twists his torso at the very last microsecond. Blood draws as the blade grazes his chest. Flashing an arrogant but earned grin, Aegis promises that his arsenal is far from empty. And because Zeke is an absolute psycho when it comes to combat, a massive, predatory smile stretches across his face. The warm-up is over, and the real slaughter is about to begin. Meanwhile, shifting over to the infirmary, Sandy finally blinks her eyes open, slammed by the bitter reality of her crushing defeat. Her squad immediately crowds her bed, heads bowed in shame as they apologize for fumbling their own matches. The guilt is heavy, as they feel like massive burdens, but Sandy instantly shuts that pity party down. She admits their opponents were just built entirely different. Lighting a fire in their chests, she hypes up her crew. The only option now is to grind harder, level up, and absolutely dominate the next tournament. Shaking off the fatigue, she asks if the West and South brackets have kicked off their bloodbath yet. Her teammates just shake their heads in disbelief. Trembling, they point toward the main stage, whispering that a legendary clash is currently breaking the internet. Sandy forces herself to glance at the monitors, and her jaw literally hits the floor. Zeke and Aegis are clashing in the center, trading blows like absolute unhinged demons. Recognizing the terrifying aura radiating from Aegis's blade, she realizes the prodigy has taken his limiters completely off. Yet, staring at the screen, she sees Zeke casually parrying a max-level ultimate attack. Laika's warning echoes in her mind. Zeke truly is the apex predator of their group. Back in the Storm of Steel, Aegis unleashes another high-tier sword art, but it is swatted away like a fly. Frustration boils over, making Aegis seriously question if Zeke's bones are forged from titanium. Casually deflecting, Zeke drops some free wisdom. He explains that he heavily invested his stats into raw, foundational stamina. Flashy sword styles look cool on camera, but core physical fundamentals win the marathon. Panting hard, Aegis cannot even argue with that logic. He mentally vows to add hellish cardio to his daily grind. Scanning the kid's combat evolution in real time, Zeke realizes he has found a diamond in the rough. If Aegis survives this, he is destined to become an absolute powerhouse in the coming wars. More importantly, this explosive sparring match has finally triggered a massive revelation in Zeke's mind. The puzzle pieces connecting his past life from a millennium ago to this modern world finally click. Back in the ancient era, true mastery was all about the physical mechanics of the strike. Warriors expressed the universe's laws entirely through their flesh and blood techniques. Mana, or ether, was just a background buff. But fast forward to the current meta, the entire game has evolved. By physically materializing magical energy, modern fighters project the universe directly into reality. The ultimate truth is clear. Total dominion over ether is the absolute core of modern combat. A bold, manic grin spreads across Zeke's face. He feels like an idiot for taking this long to decode the system. He was way too obsessed with ancient sword forms. Now, his eyes glow with feral excitement. He never imagined that a 1,000-year time skip would birth such a beautifully complex power system. On the opposite side of the ring, Aegis is absolutely floored. The fact that this mysterious guy perfectly neutralized every single one of his signature moves is terrifying. Up in the spectator seats, Langus lets out a massive groan, complaining that these two freaks of nature have been trading blows for 2 solid hours. And honestly, they look like they could go for another 10. But Laika just smirks, cutting off the whining. She drops the mic, stating the climax is finally here. Down in the dust clouds, Aegis's instincts scream that playtime is officially over. The veteran's data collection is complete, and the execution is imminent. Raising his blade, Zeke's deadly aura confirms exactly that. Zeke hits him with a smirk, admitting this clash was an absolute blast. Aegis echoes the exact same energy, and to honor a rival this epic, Zeke promises to hold absolutely nothing back. Channeling the pure combat data he absorbed mid-fight, Zeke prepares to unleash a brand new, game-changing move. A knowing smile creeps across Aegis's face. As the terrifying truth hits him, he never truly stood a chance. Even while facing an impossible wall, the guy refuses to fold, making it crystal clear that he is going out blazing. Aegis ignites his ultimate technique, pouring every ounce of his willpower into one final strike. In response, Zeke drops his newest masterpiece, a devastating storm of phantom energy fists raining down directly from the sky. Boom! The sheer shockwave obliterates the battleground, and the blast radius is so insane that the spectating students have to scramble to throw up their own defensive barriers. Jaws hit the floor as the crowd processes this god-tier clash. As the thick cloud of debris slowly fades out, the instructor instantly blows the whistle and calls the fight. The aftermath is absolutely brutal. Aegis's trusty blade is snapped clean in two, and he is sprawled out in the rubble, utterly drained but rocking a massive, satisfied grin. Staring up at the sky, he humbles himself, admitting he still has mountains to climb. With the referee officially crowning him the champion, Zeke reaches down to pull his rival out of the dirt. The arena falls into a stunned silence. The entire student body is short-circuiting right now, because nobody in their wildest dreams ever pictured the untouchable Aegis taking a loss. Whispers erupt across the stands, as everyone wonders who the heck this overpowered monster really is. Meanwhile, Zeke's own squad barely bats an eye to them. This main character energy is just another Tuesday. Of course, Laika immediately jumps on the chance to roast him. She rips into Zeke for turning the sacred arena into a crater, shaking her head at his ridiculously cracked power levels. Zeke just shrugs off the scolding, claiming it was a flawless win. He quickly changes the subject, telling the crew to lock in and shift their focus to Vanille's upcoming showdown. Breaking down the tournament bracket, Zeke points out that while the West Wing is undeniably stacked with top-tier talent, the South Wing is definitely hiding a massive dark horse. Zeke was betting on a neck-and-neck showdown, but reality? The West Wing absolutely steamrolled the competition. Vanille was practically radiating killer intent before the clash. Meanwhile, Zeke was sweating bullets, admitting his last ultimate attack went totally overboard. He figured it would take an absolute eternity to patch up the totally wrecked arena. But plot twist, Langus claps him on the back, telling him to chill out. Zeke's jaw hits the floor as the blasted arena literally rebuilds itself. Langus drops some heavy lore. The whole stadium is forged from ether light, an insanely rare mineral. Just pump some ether into it, and boom, good as new. Zeke is totally mind-blown. Flexing that kind of god-tier material just for a school arena, that is an absolute flex. But as the dust settles on the West versus South bloodbath, the instructor catches a seriously bad vibe. There is simply no way Vanille had the raw stats to crush Leela, the absolute powerhouse of the South Wing. But without solid proof, Mentrix calls the match and crowns the West Wing victorious. His voice booms across the stadium, announcing the ultimate clash. East Hall versus West Hall, kicking off in exactly 1 hour. Even the hardcore students, who know Lila is an absolute beast, are left completely shook by her brutal defeat. Zeke's spider senses are tingling too. He knows the actual skill gap between Lila and Veniel is practically non-existent. But out there in the ring, Leela's mana output was suspiciously pathetic. That shady nerf is the only reason she got completely wrecked. Zeke catches the instructor side-eyeing the arena too. They both know something foul is playing out in the shadows. Clueless, Raymond starts hyping up Veniel's massive power spike, amazed he could fold Lila like that. But Celine isn't buying it. The math just isn't mathing. Merlin tries to play peacekeeper, suggesting they are just intimidated, because they are finally witnessing the top-tier monsters from other halls flexing their true strength. Rick jumps onto the hype train, putting Vanille's current power level right up there with Zeke and Laika. But then, Rick catches Langus looking completely spaced out. He asks the dude what is haunting him. Langus sighs, admitting Veniel is a walking nightmare, but what is actually terrifying is the entire West Wing roster. They are all absolute units, and now the East has to survive them. Langus quickly backpedals, apologizing for killing the vibe right before the finals, but Merlin totally validates his dread. She points out the bitter truth: she got completely stomped in her match, and the East Hall is heavily outclassed by the West's raw firepower. But Rick is just built different. He is fired up, totally ready to crash out in the ring. If Langus and the others can slay giants, so can he. Rick's chaotic underdog energy is super contagious. The whole squad catches the spark, and Zeke smiles, seeing their fighting spirit ignite. But a dark cloud hangs over his head when he looks at Laika. She is completely spiraling. Unlike him, she didn't catch the glitch in Lila's bizarre defeat, fully believing it was a clean sweep. Since Zeke is still missing the puzzle pieces, he can't exactly walk up and tell her the match was rigged. He is totally stuck, chewing his lip. Unable to handle the suffocating pressure, Laika abruptly bails on the squad, needing some serious space to breathe. She escapes to the tranquil spring behind the arena, desperately trying to untangle the storm in her mind. Vanille's insane power leap has her completely rattled. Defeating Lila with zero effort? She knows for a fact that even a monster like Aegis would have sweated buckets fighting her, yet Vanille just swatted Lila away like a bug. Dark memories flood Laika's mind. The last time she clashed with Vanille, they were just 5 years old, and he handed her a humiliating loss. She has been grinding her stats every single day to wipe that smug grin off his face, fully believing she had finally closed the gap. But now, reality is hitting her like a freight train. If the bracket stays true, Vanille is locked in to fight Zeke. Deep down, a toxic wave of relief washes over her. It means she gets to dodge the absolute slaughter, but that very relief makes her sick to her stomach. How could she accept defeat without even drawing her blade? Right on cue, the devil himself, Vanille, steps out of the shadows. Lika glares daggers at him, ordering him to back off. But Vanille just flashes a toxic smirk. He leans in, whispering that once he claims the throne of the family head, she is going to be dragged to the altar as his trophy wife. Lika erupts, her aura flaring as she screams that she is the true heir. Vanille just laughs, soaking in her despair. He brutally reminds her that the throne is a pipe dream. She saw his absolute dominance in the ring. Lika snaps, telling him to shut his toxic mouth. But Vanille thrives on her panic, daring her to face facts. She is completely powerless against him. He purrs, telling her to stop fighting destiny, submit to his rule, and he might just keep her as a pampered pet. Disgusted, Lika smacks his filthy hand away. Spitting venom, she turns her back and marches off. The second she is gone, Vanille's smirk twists into something sinister. He glances at Alan, silently confirming the dark operation. Alan steps up, asking how they are going to execute Zeke. Vanille's eyes gleam with malice. The trap will be sprung mid-battle. Alan hesitates, thinking they should ambush Zeke before he steps into the ring, since the guy is an absolute menace. But Vanille shakes his head. Zeke's instincts are razor-sharp. He would sniff out a pre-match assassination in a heartbeat. But there is a fatal flaw in his fighting style. Zeke is a total tank who loves eating attacks on purpose. Landing their dirty little sabotage item on him during the chaos will be child's play. Plus, Vanille's ego is completely out of control. He truly believes an illegitimate piece of trash like Zeke couldn't even scratch him, even if they fought fair and square. Vanille claps Alan on the shoulder, guaranteeing they are walking out with the crown. Fast forward, the countdown hits 0. The grand finals are finally here. Rick steps onto the battlefield, vanguard for the east side once again. Behind his fiery bravado, he is secretly wrestling with the bitter fact that he and Merlin, these guys might be upperclassmen, but they sit dead last in the Academy's power rankings. Rick is practically shaking in his boots, just glancing at the West Wing roster, because those absolute monsters look terrifyingly ruthless, completely crushing any hope he had of securing a win. But right as he starts spiraling into an ocean of self-doubt, whack, Zeke materializes out of nowhere, slapping the back of Rick's head to snap him back to reality, and demanding to know where his fighting spirit vanished to. As Rick stumbles over his words like a deer in headlights, Zeke zeroes in, asking if he stepped onto this battlefield just to get destroyed. Rick fires back a desperate no, prompting Zeke to ignite a fire in his chest, commanding him to claim victory no matter how massive the power gap is. Because at the end of the day, survival is the only metric that matters. That raw intensity works like absolute magic, reigniting the blazing flame in Rick's eyes. Zeke drops a hard truth, reminding the underdog that his training was absolute hell, so all he needs now is the swagger to unleash it. Before stepping back into the shadows, Zeke hands out one final cheat code for this clash, telling the nervous fighter to drop the tension in his shoulders. Rick looks completely baffled by this weird advice, forcing Zeke to break down the mechanics of the great strength fist art. He explains that this ultimate martial art requires channeling every ounce of aura into one absolute singularity. But if his muscles are locked up in fear, that devastating energy will just fizzle out into absolute nothingness. Demonstrating the flawless flow of aura, Zeke guides him through the exact posture, commanding him to let go of his physical stress. As the energy perfectly aligns within his core, Rick lets out a massive battle cry, feeling the raw power surging through his veins, practically vibrating as he declares he is ready to crush this. With the ultimate pep talk locked in, Zeke sends his boy marching straight toward the bloodbath. Watching him leave, Lika slides up to the mentor, completely puzzled about how he possesses such god-tier knowledge of secret martial arts. Zeke does not even blink, flat out calling her question completely ridiculous, because his only explanation is that he simply possesses that main character energy. Lika physically facepalms at that massive ego drop, sighing heavily, as she admits it was a totally rookie mistake to even ask him. Down in the pit, the tension skyrockets, as Rick locks eyes with his opponent, instantly recognizing the sheer threat level standing across from him. He remembers the absolute massacre this guy unleashed during the opening round. But stepping back is no longer an option. Catching Rick's determined glare, the enemy just sneers, brutally roasting him for getting completely humiliated by the North Wing earlier, telling the underdog to keep his head down like the loser he is. Rick bites back, declaring that the old him is officially dead and gone, but the dagger wielder just laughs off the warning. The very millisecond the referee drops his hand, the enemy explodes forward. Twin blades flash as he violently mocks Rick's sudden burst of confidence, screaming that a couple of hours cannot trigger an awakening. Launching a terrifying, high-speed assassination skill, he aims straight for Rick's throat. Boom! Rick flawlessly deflects the lethal strike, coating his defense in a thick, shimmering layer of aura. Seeing his prey pull off such an epic block triggers absolute rage in the attacker's eyes, and he cranks his speed to the absolute maximum. Unleashing a blinding tornado of steel, he carves violent gashes across Rick's defense, forcing the underdog to swallow agonizing waves of pain. The villain continues his psychological warfare, maliciously taunting Rick about his pathetic claim of a massive glow-up. Bloodied and pushed to the absolute brink, Rick mentally acknowledges the terrifying skill gap between them. Yet, the fire in his soul refuses to burn out. He gambles everything on a desperate right hook, but the assassin simply ghosts past him, delivering a nasty counterslash that tears through flesh. Agony rips from Rick's lungs, forcing his consciousness into that hyper-focused zone where time literally freezes. Desperation clouds his mind as he frantically searches for a way to overcome this untouchable monster. Suddenly, Zeke's golden advice echoes through the chaos of his mind. Drop the tension, forge the aura into a single bullet. In that split second, the enemy goes in for the final kill, lunging forward with lethal intent. But this time, a chilling calmness washes over the underdog. The assassin strikes, only to freeze in pure shock as a terrifying grin stretches across Rick's bruised face, whispering that he walked right into a trap. Reality hits the overconfident villain like a freight train, as he realizes Rick has caught the razor-sharp blade completely barehanded. Trapped in point-blank range, the assassin is utterly defenseless against the devastating energy erupting from Rick's fist. Bam! A meteoric punch blasts the enemy across the entire arena, cratering him violently into the solid concrete barrier. The referee immediately waves his hands to stop the slaughter, crowning Rick as the undisputed champion. The arena falls dead silent before Rick actually processes the epic upset, throwing his fists to the heavens in an absolutely chaotic roar of triumph. The crushed assassin stares into the void, completely shattered by the loss. Dragging his broken body back to his leader, Veniel, he is instantly rewarded with a brutal, unforgiving punch to the face from his own boss. Veniel's eyes burn with demonic fury as he glares at his surviving squad members, commanding them to utterly annihilate the East Wing without an ounce of mercy. Moments later, the spotlight shifts to Merlin, stepping into the ring, heavily boosted by Rick screaming his lungs out in support, aggressively hyping up his teammate. The bell rings for round 2, and Merlin wastes zero time, instantly going on the offensive with blinding speed. She activates her signature technique, sending a lethal spark slash tearing through the air. But the spear-wielding enemy weaves through the lightning, launching a deadly, pinpoint counter-thrust. That missed strike leaves a massive blind spot in her defense. In a split second, the heavy shaft of the spear crashes violently into her ribs, instantly forcing the wind out of her lungs and dropping Merlin to the floor. The ruthless fighter shows absolutely zero hesitation, following up with another brutal, bone-crushing smash, while her teammates remain completely frozen in a mix of pure horror and boiling rage. Rick nearly jumps over the barricade to save her, but Raymond violently yanks him back, screaming that interfering will trigger an instant disqualification for the entire squad. Stepping into the carnage, the referee abruptly calls the slaughter to an end, handing a blood-soaked victory straight to the West Wing. To make things infinitely worse, the absolute scumbag disrespectfully plants his boot right on Merlin's fallen body, cementing his total dominance. The squad immediately swarms the arena, their hearts dropping as their teammate remains completely unresponsive on the cold tiles. Meanwhile, hovering in the darkest corner of the room, Zeke ignores the chaotic rescue attempts completely, his eyes glowing with an apocalyptic level of murderous intent after witnessing that ultimate disrespect.